our guest here,
What's good? What's good?
Nino
This is
Bless.
Nino Bless on the official, non-official podcast with my man J Reds, MC Ironfoot out here.
Shit yeah. We're chilling here in our basement studio with Nino Bless and J Reds.
What up, people?
And I am fucking listening on a weird delay trying to sync this up right now. So I'm just going to turn it over to you guys to talk for a little bit while I figure this shit out.
All right. I mean, if I was to have a podcast and we did do something more serious and give it a name, it probably would have to have a name like The Green Room or some shit, because that's essentially what every conversation I've ever had has been in a fucking green room or some extent of. So, sure. Green Room, Volume 1, with J Reds featuring
can't even-
Nino Bless.
Stop
The
acting
fuck
like
was
you
my
wasn't-
podcast called? As like The Trip was
The
something,
Trip.
right? Yeah.
I like how you thought you act like you
Every-
weren't thinking about it. Like, yeah, just off the top, the green room. If I was thinking about it, not like I wrote that down like 2 months ago or some shit.
No, I didn't.
I call horse shit, Twitch. I call horse shit.
Like 40 seconds before we started, I was like, shit, I should have something. And I just started like battle rap gear. Like, it's like you gotta sit there, you're looking at your opponent on the spot. Like, how much can I think of in the 40 seconds before I gotta get him? I just didn't have to get nobody.
If anybody's listening right now and you need to come up with a title or something, just fucking last minute hit up J Reds and he will come up with the quickest fucking name ever. Because I'm like, the green room, that sounds fucking official. Like, I want in.
Yo, I'm not even the best at naming fucking Poltergeist OD and his lady. We've actually had like little sessions where like we're gonna build a food truck at this one point, and we narrowed it down to we're gonna make like a poultry truck. And so I like straight up I was like, okay guys, go home and come back to me with every possible name you can for this poultry truck. And they leave and they come back the next day. They're like, okay, so they watched every movie they could that was associated with birds, and then they wrote down every bird pun they possibly could.
amazing.
It was like hundreds of puns that they boiled down into names, and then by the end of it, they're like, here are 40 of our finest bird pun names for this truck. Out of all of it, came down to my favorite was want to buy a fowl.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I remember one time I was telling the homie about like a podcast, and I was like, if we had a podcast, what would the name be? And within fucking less than a second, he's like, Aliens and Baklava. And I was like, wait, what? That's so cool. He's like, yeah. Or flip it, Baklava and Aliens. I'm like, I like that one. You know what I mean? But like you pay people to come up with shit like this. So like, what do we fucking name this alcohol? And this fucking guy named a podcast in like fucking 2 seconds. I'm always with that.
They definitely pay in big think tanks like a bunch of money that they could just like buy a bag of any miscellaneous drug and hand to some random dude. Like, start spitting out names. Like, I got you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like the most random suggestions and shit. Yeah. Names. I'm always wondering like who comes up with like these like extra fucking like ideas and shit. You know what I mean? Like I'm always wondering like how the meeting happened. Like like little details for specific things. I'm like, who thought of that shit?
Yeah,
You know what I
like
mean?
sometimes you're like, who the fuck was in the boardroom when that shit got approved, and how fucking high were y'all? Because that's some wild shit. Like,
Case in point, first time I ever went to Canada, I don't know why I know this information. Somebody told me, yeah, the age of consent is 16 here. Or maybe 14. I don't know. It was really young or whatever. But I was like, really? It's that young over here? And they were like, yeah. But they were like, but anal is 18. And I was like, what? I was like, wait, first of all, why do y'all know these laws? like, who knows these? Second of all, again, let's start to, simulate who the fuck was in the room. And it was like, yeah, age of consent, 16. Quebec, 16. What? How about anal? I don't think I think we should wait 2 years. And then, so it's like you can legally be with a woman and or girl, young lady, whatever you want to call her, have a relationship with her, but you just like can't fuck her in the ass. It's like the weirdest shit I've ever. By the way, that's my first fucking in the ass thing that I've said in this podcast. About 10 more within the next however long we do this. Just
man, I thought like outlawing sodomy was like strictly an American thing, you know?
no. And the craziest thing is like they had 2 different numbers. My whole shit is like who decides vaginally like 16, anally 18? You know what I mean? Like, that's not feminist. Like, women is like, I can handle it at 16. I can handle both things. Like, leave me alone. All right, I can do both things. So, you know what I mean? I mean, this is the type of shit, like you said, I'm the oracle, man. Y'all don't got to Google this. Believe me. Just trust me.
I think we are going to have to call this podcast The Green Room because these are the conversations that happen in the green room, guys. If you ever
100%.
wanted to know, this is what's happening.
Oh,
back
100%.
there. This is what you missed
Well,
out on.
yo, I'm gonna keep it a buck. The first time I came
It's
to
not
Canada,
bad. It's not a bad name. I would just wait to finalize until you Google that name first and see how many other podcasts have the exact same name.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I have thought of that.
It's the only
Which
thing I
is-
can think of is like how many fucking out there gotta be named
Well,
the
yeah,
Green
you
Room
can't-
already.
yeah,
'Cause
well,
that
look-
seems like a really
Yeah,
Probably
you'd think,
simple
but
one to get
like
to.
maybe not. Sometimes you know, podcasts like usernames you're fucked like that, but like actually going through the motions of doing a podcast is like a barrier of entry almost. You know, and that's gonna cut so many of the people off. There's a chance.
what's dope about podcasts is like, you know, and when you're broadcasted on the network television, you can't really chop your demographics and be like, well, we just need 1% of these people, whatever, this and that. But like podcasts, you literally could just be like, well, I'm gonna do something on 60s underground science comic books, and it's like, who the fuck will listen to this? Well, there's like a small group of people. All you need to find is that little group of people underneath the 0.5% of your demographic. It exists. And nothing illustrates that more than fucking Gilmore Boys. So like a bunch of dudes did a podcast called the Gilmore Boys,
Okay.
where they talked about the Gilmore Girls.
really.
And they were like number 10 in the world during the height of podcasting a few years back.
Oh my
and
God.
that's hella fucking smart. You know what I mean? Like, I told my boys the other day, I was like, they were like, what kind of, Nino, you be coming up with pretty cool ideas. What would you do if we could do like a podcast? And I'm like, we should do like some gangster barbershop version of like chick flicks and just review them and just get like the craziest hood dudes and be like, nah, B, Noah should have never like built that house for her son. Like, you know, just get like the most hood version of like a bunch of dudes watching like the craziest chick flick shows or movies, and really like even go back and watch Seventh Heaven. And my man was like,
Kind of like Mystery Theater 3000, whatever the fuck that was back in the day, right?
exactly. And my man's like, who the fuck would listen to that? I'm like, you'd be surprised. You'd be fucking surprised.
Yeah. Yo, I'm gonna give you a rec. If you pull one of your ears slightly off, that'll probably give you a better gauge for where we're at too. Or is that too?
Oh, I know you hear me fucking like pausing when I talk or whatever. It's fucking.
More so
It's
just
weird,
like-
man. I'm getting a fucking
no,
echo.
I get you. You're
No, I think I pretty much dialed in. I'm gonna take these headphones off. I was just
cool.
fucking,
Okay.
Nice.
fucking around a little bit more while you guys talk here.
Nice.
Yeah, no, you're good, bro. You're good. Cool. Well, fucking, yeah, I don't know. I was, have the opportunity to, might as well take a little dive in. Fucking, Nino Bless, you got one of the most interesting stories in rap music, I'd say. Fucking, where would we start? I'd start with the road.
Start at the beginning.
Well, the road in which I found you as through our late homie Bender. Rest in peace
Rest
to
in
the king.
peace, Bender, yeah.
How did you meet Bender? Where did that start?
Oh my, this is, oh my God. God's watching right now because this is so cool. So Pat Stay, rest in peace. First time I was a huge Bender fan. Whenever he rhymed Atomic Bomb Designer with Robert
Oppenheimer.
and I was,
Yeah.
who the fuck rhymes that? And he was evidently he was a fan of mine. He really liked Rhyme of the Year. He liked the Slaughterhouse verse I kicked years ago, and he was already tapped in. And
Oh, that's cool. So you guys were like mutually like
but
following
we
each
never
other's shit.
but we never looked like talked.
Yeah.
Like never even reached at each other. Rapper ego shit, which is like, I respect that dude, but why would I message him type shit? You know, vice versa.
Yeah. But he didn't even take rapping seriously until he was like older and shit like that. Like in his 20s, he was just wilding out, having a good time, really. Like,
Right. Exactly. And then so one day Pat State calls me on three-way, and he's running his bars for Sharon. No, not Sharon, because Brenda and Sharon were cool. One of the might have been Math, or it was like a big battle, you know. And Pat was running his bars, and he was like, "Hey, I got Bender on three-way. Is that cool?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." And then Pat leaves because he's got to go do something, and he leaves me and Bender on three-way. So now me and Bender are chopping it up, and I don't even know what we're talking about. And then Pat comes back. He goes, "Jesus fucking Christ! I leave for 5 minutes. You guys are talking about Russian Revolution. What the fuck just happened? You know?" And him and I just clicked right then and there. And I said, "Yeah, you know what? I'll get your info. You get mine." And yeah, from that moment on, I think it was like 2014, we became cool. And you know, I'll say this real quick, just if we might lose track. I get very discursive, and I'll hop from subject to subject. I'll say this real quick about Bender, and you know, I miss him because first of all, nobody else was up at 5 a.m. at 6 a.m. You could always count on him. You know, yeah.
Oh, that. All of my messages, if I pulled up and looked in my messenger, it's all 4 to 6 a.m.
Yeah. And I saw this a movie with Adam Sandler called Spanglish once, and he comes home at 3 in the morning, and he looks at the dog. He's like, "Who can I count on being there for me at 3 a.m.?" And I'm like, "That's my Bender." Bender was always there for me at 4 or 5 a.m. So it was one, he was always up. He was either painting, writing. He had obviously so many gifts. I don't think I've ever sent it to you, but I actually have a novel that he started writing. I have short stories of his that he sent me. So at 4 in the morning, it was like,
those.
Yeah, I got you. But anyways, yeah, like I miss him because like at 4:30 in the morning, if my mind is thinking about like democracy or like cracking holes in some levels of like, you know, capitalism and like really diving into the origins of some stuff, I could call him and literally that conversation would last an hour. And Lo Pesci, where he was living with towards the end, you know, would come by and be like, "Talking to Nino, right?" He's like, yeah. And I could count on talking to him about transition phases from monarchies to and it's like there was never a subject that was, you know, out of his realm of understanding. And you know, I was telling a professor named Daniele Bolelli, who's been like on Joe Rogan like Matt. I was like, this guy's intellect was like I can't even describe. And there's different aspects of intellect to me. There's the intellect of you. I think we were talking about this just in your crib like a couple days ago, which is being able to process new information. And then there's having all the shit stored in your shit. He had both. And it's like he's so greatly missed because of that. You know what I mean? And Pat's gone now, lost another friend. But one of the craziest things is I'm like always grateful that even when Pat was here, that he connected me with Bender because I don't know how many years we have with Bender. And then through that, Bender became tapped in more to my music. And that's how you and I connected. And I've been out here, you know, I've come to Alberta. I don't think I ever been to Alberta prior to meeting you. So it's been a dope thing since we connected.
Yeah, for sure. And like the Bender really, when you say he had it both, like he had it both ways, he had like, from an outside perspective, it could seem like maybe his life wasn't like the most fantastic, but to know him and like who he was and what he wanted and what his goals were, like the man's basically drank wine and painted canvases of rap heroes for a living. You know, people bought those at $2.50 a pop every fucking day, so he could sit there and just crank those out.
His commission game was crazy.
Yeah, I got 7 of them myself. You know
his commission game was crazy.
And so like that was basically his day job. And then so he made music from the purest place because he had no ambition of even caring if people listened to it.
Not just music. Like, he wrote raps from the purest place.
Yeah.
And he would write raps about like, he would do like these period pieces raps. And he would rap like The Butcher did it type shit. And he'd be like, you know, Lord this and that was doing this. And he'd rap me like these bars. And I'm like, what is this? He's like, I don't know. Just some shit I'm writing. And it'd be like this 3.5 minute piece of some guy's depression in like 1300, you know, Eastern Europe. And you're like, what the fuck is this? You know? So look, I have a short story from him and I'll share it with you after we leave this. And it's about some dude who is 10 years removed from World War II and he's about to die from a tsunami. And he writes it from the perspective of the guy seeing the tsunami. And I think it's like from 200 years ago, actually. But it's like so crazy. It's like this guy's mind was everywhere, you know what I mean? And he's like, he's fucking greatly missed. And what's crazy is we connect through Bender. I get over here to Alberta. You connect me with a bunch of people as well. And I've met some good people out here thanks to you. And I've traveled all of Canada as well thanks to you. Like I did my first Ontario tour thanks to you. And one of the other things was I found out when I got here how big of an Idea fan you was. You're wearing the shirt right now. And as you know, anybody who's watching this, I'm pretty sure they know how crazy you are about Idea.
That's my guy.
And Idea was down with Rhyme Sayers. Rhyme Sayers is essentially one of the guys who spearheaded it with Slug of Atmosphere. And then you and I are kicking it, and you just randomly told me this story about that you got kicked out of a show from Atmosphere. And I was like, that's interesting. I'm going to FaceTime him right now. I fucking FaceTime him, and he remembers you.
Yeah.
And nobody believes me whenever I tell that story because Brother Ali hates the fact that I co-signed this because him and Slug have this huge fight over who has a better memory. And although Slug concedes that Ali has a better memory than him, Ali can't remember he remembered the kid's face. He's like, there's no way. And Slug's like, tell him I didn't text him anything.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy that he looked you dead in the face and goes, I think I know that face. Did you get kicked out of one of my shows? And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, that shit was crazy because I didn't even remember that that's how it went because I was at that show. I was 14 with a fake ID, fucking dreadlocks down to my ass, just like got... I mean, at the start of the show, I even tried to battle Slug because Slug was like outside just like kicking it with everybody. I was like, maybe Slug will smoke weed with me. I'm like 14 and shit. He's like, no, man, I just quit smoking cigarettes. I can't be smoking weed and just eating it. You know what I mean? Like, all right, cool. I was like, do some rapping and stuff. He's like, well, you know, I'll, at this point in life, only battle somebody if it's like for the name. Like, if they say their name is Slug, I'll battle them. I was like, cool, I'm Slug. And he's like, nah, man, fuck off. Like,
You never forget a face of a kid who tried to battle you.
yeah,
He
right.
probably remembered you because of that more than the getting kicked out of the show.
Yeah, but I just remember screaming along to like Love Life and Fuck You Lucy and shit. I don't remember how the night ends, but then when you pull up that FaceTime and everything, you got Slug on. He's like, yeah, in Edmonton, I love Edmonton. But man, one time I was there, this crazy dude, man, fuck, I had to kick him out of the show and shit. And you're like, yo, this is my boy, say hi. And I like lean my head in the shot. He's like, you're never gonna believe this, but that's the fucking guy. Right there.
Oh, and then he did that's what happened. He recognized
yeah.
after we told him. You're right.
Yeah.
I recall that differently.
There's
You're right.
some crazy
about that.
fucking odds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was nutty, man. It was
He did.
nutty.
He brought up Reg's thing through his story, and I said, "That's him."
And I didn't even know, so then I like called my buddy that I had went to the show with, who actually was 18 when I went to the show, and I was like, Greg, how did that night end, man? He's like, you don't remember, man? You got blackout drunk, got kicked out, like Slug like had to fucking like send you out. I was like, Slug had to send me out. He's like, yeah, Slug had to send you out. I was like, I was wondering how you were like still having such a good day the next day at school and shit.
Getting kicked out by the OG.
That's one of the fucking upsides of getting blackout drunk, right?
I guess so.
You forget all the fucking shame from the night before, right? Fucking wake up, fucking feeling good.
Oh, I'm just lucky that Slug used to get mad blackout too, so there's a bit of empathy there. I think.
Oh yeah, a ton of that. Yeah, a ton of that. Yeah.
And I was a wee lad. I was like 14 and shit.
Yeah, I remember I brought up somebody who like suffered from like bipolar disorder, and they had just got out of a psych ward, and they were like really sensitive to like crowds and shit. And I said, hey, Slug, I just want you to know, like they're excited, they're a huge fan, but they have this really bad bipolar thing, and they just got out of a psych ward. And he's like, those are my people. I'm like, oh, worried about this guy getting out of a psych ward. Because the dude I met, I knew him through somebody else. And they, was like, this is dope. Like, you just got out of this thing and you get to see this. Because he was like, I can never afford these tickets. I'm like, he's not Madonna, right? Like, pretty sure you could afford him. And he's like, nah, but when you just get out of that, you just don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
you don't,
yeah.
you're not tapped in. Yeah, you don't know if slugs become, like, you're just like in a weird space. And they were just like, I'm just weird around crowds. So I was kind of keeping a watchful eye. And I just was like, I don't know if you want this person backstage because I had to be upfront with him.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that's my people. Like, of course he can. Like, a psych ward, let him in. Let him in the back of this atmosphere. And hey, Ant, this guy just got out of a psych ward.
Yeah.
And Ant's like, what's up? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's also a thing like when you're like on the craziness spectrum, you have more of an ability to communicate with people in that world too. So like, if they start getting like a little weird and shit, you can like calmly G-check them in a way that other people, it'll be taken like adversarially, whereas like they'll be like, this guy knows and he's trying to help me, and I'll think about it for a second,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna, I'm not talking shit about him because I love him. I think he's a great guy, and we're cool. So I'll say his name. But Disaster, the battle rapper, is a fucking maniac, and he knows it. And I will say somebody told me something because the way like him and I talk, like they kind of heard us speaking, and they said, he's looking for a conduit. He's always looking for a conduit. That's why he's okay with you speaking to him like this. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'm not saying that I was like, oh, that's my role now, but it was more like, oh, that makes sense. Why I can tell Diz, hey, stop. You're talking shit. You're just making stuff up. This is all in your own fucking head. And he's like, all right, you know, and I guess like some people, like I'm not saying this is on the spectrum, not saying that at all. Maybe there is no spectrum with this, but spectrum is non-existent. It is this flexible, fluid, infinite spectrum that's non-existent spectrum.
There's a whole other graph.
Yeah, you got to get some quantum physicists mixed with a cognitive behavioral scientist to
What's a
sort of
quantum pie chart look like?
yeah, exactly. It's like, well, to describe the spectrum, this is we need the observation theory, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Like, who the fuck knows? But one of the craziest things for me was, like it made me think about it because this is a great dude and he knows I'm trolling. But like one of the coolest things was I was like, I think I've been surrounded by a lot of people in my life that have been a little bit, you know, maniacal in whatever sense, and I've kind of just been like, yo, you're just in your head, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. Like even from the hey Kelsey, even from the perspective of like having somebody who's going through like one of my friends tells me, you don't have fucking kids, but you give me good kid advice, which by the way, no one asked me for kid advice ever. I don't think I give good kid advice, but she does. It's her own subjective experience. But she said, you give me really good kid advice. And I was like, that's weird, you know, because she goes, but you know what? Because you don't have kids, you're not in this shit. You're not looking at me just going so hard. You know, you're more outside just going, your kid's 5, your kid's 6. Like you're saying regular shit that's like whatever. And I do think that I've served a role for people like that in life. So, you know, I think Slug has as well, because he was like not even, somebody would have told me, yo, this dude just got out of a psych ward. I'd be like, what the fuck you bringing him backstage for? Slug's like, come on down. You know, wanted to put him in The Price is Right. But, but yeah, you and I have had these weird like intersecting sort of like common threads that sort of have, you know, put us together, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's like, I'll reconnect with that thought here in a second. So to like dial back to like Bender, how you were saying, just like a unique human in terms of the just like the wealth of information with the emotional maturity and everything to couple with it,
right?
And so like that was your guys like grounds for like where you guys converse about all your like shit that other people won't talk to you about. So like the first time I went on tour with Bender, it was real fun and shit, but what I realized on tour was that I was fucking stupid.
No, you told me this story.
Yeah, it was like, oh man.
Yeah, like to have a conversation with him, I need to read. Like you're like, I need to fucking do some read. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, everybody else, you know, the rap tours, everybody gets blackout drunk, go back to the hotel, and they're like, there might be a bit of politicking and shit, but it doesn't usually, like, I don't usually need to like know the dates and shit.
Yeah.
I was like, I literally left that tour and I like binged Oliver Stone's history of the U.S. and then went back, did world events like start to finish, and I was like, next time we went on tour, sat down, world shit came up, I was like, I can talk. I know some shit now. I know some shit. So it was like really inspiring in that way. And then where that branches towards where I was going with this is, it was hella crazy because like the first time I booked you and we brought you out here, I mean, we didn't have like a ton of rapport built yet and anything. We just like went out, did a couple shows on the weekend. We didn't really like know we gonna be bros and like try to work on all this shit together. And fucking, it was crazy because if I remember things correctly, like we didn't end the first run like totally on like the best terms, and we were like, it wasn't like anything crazy, but we were just like, there was like minor amounts of money that like it was probably on me that were just like not sorted out on time and shit, and we're just like not like super stoked, and fucking we just like wasn't even talking. And then you call me at like 3 a.m. or some shit after Bender had died, and fucking that was like what made us start talking again. And then you told me, you're like, you know, I mean, you probably would have a better exact recounting of it, but I remember it being something to the effect of him saying, like, yeah, fuck it. Or you were telling him that we were having our own little spat or whatever, and he said something to the effect of, like, yeah, no kidding, like, the like, greatest dude who fucking didn't get the shine that he deserved along the way, and like the young kid who's working hard getting slept on. No way you guys are butting heads or some shit
exactly.
like that. Like,
well, yeah, what he said, give him time. Like he said, give him time. He's young and he's a knucklehead. That was the first thing he said. I swear to you, he sounded like '70s Italian.
Yeah,
Give him time. He's a knucklehead. You know, like like the weirdest shit. But like that's what he said. He's like, give him time. He's a knucklehead. But I'm sure I'm at fault too because I come from this. I have the school like I in my mind the way I process things is we share. There's a sense of mutuality. Like you and I are sharing a piece of that pie together. No matter the percentage, it doesn't matter whether you're 80% wrong or 20% wrong. You're fucking wrong. You know who shares more of the blame?
Yeah.
Is some shit that can change off 5 words
Yeah.
or perspective. You know what I mean? So it's like it's 80 now. Okay, now it's 60. All right, good point. Now it's 50. But I got a good point. Now it's 70. You know. So to me, I never thought it was just all you. I was just like, I don't fucking, like yada yada yada, and I kind of tried to move on from like to me, I kind of try to like let things fizzle and just so, but there was never nothing. It was just more like I was like, I'll see him when I see him type shit. You know what I mean? And I knew you were running the venue at the time, so I was like, he's just got a lot of shit going on. He wants to book tours. He's owning venues. He's owning this, and I've met enough people like that to like they start overwhelming themselves with like 6 or 7 ventures. They'll take on 3 that they're all in on, and then there's 4 that they're thinking about, and they never fully gather themselves. I never thought of you in a sense of somebody who wasn't somebody I didn't want to build because I liked you. I like network. I like talking to you, everything. And I liked your passion for this shit and what you value and what you don't. So all of that was already cool. It was just like I was like, he's overwhelmed and he has a lot going on. I don't think I was wrong about that.
No,
because you firmly admitted that to me beyond, and you were more overwhelmed than I ever thought you were because you flat out expressed that to me. But yeah, the night, and I'll backtrack before I go back to this. Something similar to that happened to you happened to me. I would hit the road when I was 16 or 17, and I just remember saying shit, and my man's like, "Well, what does that mean? Well, what is a democracy? Well, what is that? What is that? What government? What does that mean? What is it? Like I was just never really getting into the, origins of anything, like any etymology of anything. I was just like, I just know this part of it. I don't need to speak on the part I don't know. And rocking with some OGs and shit, you start to go like, yo, bro, if you don't know if you can't backtrack and you can't like back these things that you're describing, then you're just representing a talking point. Like I could replace you with anyone who's just saying anything that you're saying, which is kind of like the issue now with like the politicized sector. It's like once somebody says 10 words, I could go, I know all 20 things you represent. You're for this, you're for this. It's like you're like we're sort of getting into this ideology space of like where they're saying vaccinologists and like epidemiologists are alt-right, and it's like, since when the fuck is science it politicized? It's like, no, some of these guys never left the lab. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. And so when I was coming up, I went through something similar that in the sense of what you went through, and this is a world of autodidacts, a whole lot of self-taught motherfuckers. And you tend to kind of think that you just you read the first half of the book. You're like, I don't need nobody else read the first half of the book. When then you don't realize it's like, well, you're like 2 books behind. You might have read that first half book, but you're almost, I'm analogizing, right? And you get to learn that when people call you out on your shit, and that's important. So I'm glad Bender provided that for you, because by the time we talked, you were saying shit that I heard him say. I was like, and I could tell the influence, but also you were also adding your own take based on not just using his words. You were like, based on this information that I was like, he clearly got this from Bender. But you were like, this is my foresight. And I was like, oh, this is unique because you were younger than Bender. You were in a different world than Bender. Bender was more recluse. So you were more of a people person in a sense of how you understood the world, and you were applying it in a different way. And I was like, this fucking kid is bright because he's not just taking these ideas, he's also sort of like breaking down his own individualized subjective view of it. And then the night I'll skip the night Bender passed. I don't know how many days it was, but yeah, man, like I definitely wanted to reach out to you, and I was in a sense of mourning, and it was a tough one to take. I think the person that I know that took it the hardest is probably Ilmac. Like, me and Ilmac are friends, and he took it ridiculously hard. And I was kind of confused by it, although they had their own shit. I mean, the
Yeah.
one thing I noticed about Pat and Bender is they all had their own shit. Like Pat was like Pat's girl said when I was in Toronto, she was like, I wouldn't know where the fuck he was. He would be in the car, and turns out he was helping somebody in Nicaragua with their relationship. He was sending voice notes to some fucker in, you know, in Budapest. You
Yeah.
know, he just had these, like, everybody just popped up with these random voice notes from Pat, and I'm like, Pat, and it makes sense you didn't watch no movies, no Netflix, no. And Bender had the same thing. I thought I had a special relationship with him, and I'm telling Ilmac about my Ilmac's like, yeah, me too. Like, same fucking shit, bro.
Yeah.
And Bender didn't have that with everybody, but it was dope that I was one of those people that he had that with. And we push each other, challenge each other, suggest reading, things to read and whatnot. So yeah, when I was processing that, I was also wanting to not just reconnect with you, but also check in on you, because I know how much of an influence he had on you. And I understand that you were young. You're somebody who's battled a ton of different issues in your childhood. And I was like, yeah, losing fucking guys that he's looked up to isn't the best thing. So that was one thing I wanted to do, because I'm like, Bender told me, give him time, and here Bender's gone. And I'm like, if Bender would want me to do anything, it would be checking in on him. You know what I mean? And and I'm glad I did, because you were in a different space, and it was good for us to talk and chop it up, and it was really dope.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And that's the instinct was nail on the head for sure, because it was like fucking he, just like as a kid, he was just like a battle rap hero. I didn't think he was ever gonna be like a homie. And then after we like did some tours and stuff, like it's not like every artist you do that shit with you become like real close with and everything like
Yeah.
that. And then he kind of had become a person that I turned to when shit was like mad dark all the time. And then then he was gone, and it was like the music I would turn to, or the entertainment and the battles I would turn to, or any of the things I would turn to like escape what was like happening, were all him. And so it was like it was a fucking catch-22, you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure I just like watched his battles for like 3 or 4 days in the basement before I fucking even tried to take on the world. But like
Yeah.
that was it was really important that you reached out at that time, because I was in a dark place, and I still went through a lot of dark shit after that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, it definitely could have been worse. And fucking, I was chatting with Chris Nielsen. He's one of the folks that runs True Rhythm out here, and he went through some like mad hard shit. Like the year before that, his business partner Jerry, that was his sensei sort of thing, had built everything with him. He had killed himself, and
Oh, shit.
he was real fucked up about that. The shit that he said to me, I'll never forget, was like, because then his family didn't live here, and so like Chris also then had to like manage the funeral and like literally do the whole nine on all of that before he even got a chance to like breathe, grieve, process anything like that. He's like, and fucking the whole time I'm like thinking like, fuck, what am I gonna do? I'm like burying my Jedi. And he's like, as I lowered him into the ground, I was like, I got it. Where I was like, fuck, if the Jedi's gone, that means I have to try to be that now. And it's like,
Right.
not to like give myself that crown or anything like that, but just like to take the responsibility of like the things he was bringing to the world. Not a lot of people are even capable of, let alone cared about, you know what I
Right.
mean? And
Make sure his teachings live on, right?
yeah, exactly. And fucking, I was lucky enough to have spent the tours taking in all that knowledge from him and shit. So it's like, I would be selfish to not try to pass it down, because I was lucky enough to get it,
Oh,
like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And when you lose somebody like that, like, it's so crazy, because it's, I forgot who I was talking to somebody the other day. We were talking about sports, and he was like, you can't fake desperation. You know what I mean? And when you lose, like, you cannot. There's no synthesized version of, like, you could say, I'm not taking this for granted, but we're all gonna take each other for granted, because we just assume, like, the way things are today, they're gonna be tomorrow, until they're not. You know what I mean? So it's impossible to not take people for granted, because there would be too many fucking people. You'd have a level of anxiety that's just unbearable because you're constantly not taking people for granted. So and there's different versions of that.
Way too thin for
Yeah,
yeah.
You're like, I can't. I gotta fucking the last time. What if it's the last time I ever talk to somebody? Like that's a shitty way to live, right? So it's almost impossible. But yeah, you do realize when somebody's gone like that. That like when Bender was gone, I was like, I was like, fuck, man, like I didn't recognize his place in my life in the position he was in until he passed. Yeah. Once he passed, I was like,
but
this is not somebody I'm ever gonna have in my life again.
Yeah, like not to speak crassly, but there's people you meet in your life where it's not to say they're like replaceable, but like you're gonna meet people who are very similar to them.
Similar, and remind you of them. Yeah.
There's like nobody even close.
No. So when you have somebody that idiosyncratic and they're uniquely dumb, because they're just a combination of a bunch of shit that makes them somebody from that they prefer the outskirts. They prefer to be outside of whatever bubble is going on. I mean, what was Bender's politics? He didn't have politics, right? He was anti-political, right?
Yeah.
What was Bender's ideology? You can't fucking describe it because he didn't have any specific ideology. Yeah. He was a fucking flexible dude that was just lived in all these different spaces. Almost everything made sense to him, and then the things that didn't, he called horse shit, but he was like, I'll keep an eye on you because you might make sense one day. You know, very bright dude. And then the same thing happened with Pat because, Pat's there. I'm not ever thinking, oh, Pat's an irreplaceable person or whatever. And then Pat's gone. And I'm like, fuck, who else is going to send me videos in the morning and send me voice notes like this and say gay pride after every fucking thing and just like, and make me laugh over the dumbest thing. You know what I mean? So, but, it's my man was like, it's the wound lesson because he just said some fucking meme. I think he was just trying. He's like, it's hard to not take people for granted. You can't. And I'm like, it's impossible. We're all gonna take everybody for granted. But it's important when these people are gone to sort of like not sensationalize them, but just bring them to the level of their actual true impact. Yeah. And that was the one thing I wanted to do with I know we're on the Bender topic, but for me it's connected with Pat because I met Bender through Pat. Yeah,
they're intrinsically connected. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. There's that picture of he's sitting on Pat's lap. I don't know if you saw that picture.
No.
I forgot who posted. They were like, they're in heaven like this, because Bender's just sitting on his lap, all fucking weird. Yeah. And it's a shitty picture to look at because you're just like, fuck, they're both gone. But it's such a cute picture.
But they're both such a great testament to like, if you like from it as an outsider watch battle rap and start to try to like follow the culture and see what's going on. Like, everything you could be possibly led to believe is, like, the people who are the best at this are, like, ruthless cunts who fucking, like, have no regard for anybody else. And it's, like, then you meet Bender, and it's, like, you couldn't even... You'd have to gas him up for an hour just to fucking inflate his ego a tiny bit for it to exist.
He didn't believe anything. Yeah, he wouldn't take credit, and he was just a very... Bender's, like, one of those guys that, like, you read about some fucking... humble dude in a village that lived in by the Himalayas or some shit and like broke down the willow tree and the oak tree and went through all this shit, and you're like, wait, so you lost all your family, like your mom poisoned everyone and then killed herself, and you were 7 raised in a temple. Like, you hear about all these monks and you're just like, nobody fucking lives like that. But Bender, I got the privilege, and I'm not gonna put his business out there, of him talking to me about personal family stuff. He had no resentment. He had zero. He went through some shit. He got neglected. You know what I mean? He's seen some shit, and he had like, based on how he never said I have no resentment, but it's just the way he spoke about it. He was just like
bitter.
And he hated, one thing he hated was how, and I try to value this, he hated how we talk about the generation that came before us. And he's like, it's so fucking easy. Like, it's the laziest thing to just go, they did it wrong and they had it wrong. And it's like, well, of course they did, but they also got abused their own way. They also went through now we're like, oh, this generational trauma we're going through, and whatever, it's valid. But it's like, what about the shit that they saw from the fucking grandparents who just survived the war?
Straight up, we think about all the fucking like bullshit in our day-to-day lives we deal with trauma-wise, but like, man, our fucking grandfathers and grandmothers were like 16, 17, fucking some of them fucking like got in early and shit like that. Like in the trenches, fucking ducking bullets. And
You used
bombs,
to have to own encyclopedias if you wanted to answer facts.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and I'm not speaking for everybody here, but I knew some poor people growing up in New York, and even the poor folks they weren't eating well, but they were eating a lot of canned shit, a lot of whatever, and they had a lot of cereal, whatever the fuck it was. They had food, but there's a generation that poor is no food.
yeah.
In North America, you know what I mean? So it's like that's something we could barely conceive because we have
what's going on here. Like our reserves and shit out here is still fucking third world state. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
right.
Fucking, it's
there's some in Ontario that still don't have proper fucking, or up north that still don't have proper running water right now.
yeah, all of that. Yeah.
It always reminds me of there's this it's a low key movie nobody's ever seen. It's called Hold the Dark, but there's this scene in it where there's like standoff between this like the sheriff is like a white dude, and he means well. He's not like a shitty white dude in it, you know what I mean? But he's also just has to deal with the rapport of all the men before him, and he's talking to like this indigenous dude who's like they're having a big standoff sort of thing, and he's trying to like reason with them, and he's like, "Come on, Chile, you know, my folks came out here, got your people some running water and stuff. We've been trying to help you guys out." He's like, "You guys want trophies so my folks can take shits in their houses?" Like,
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, she has a book right there. There's a book called "Civilized to Death," kind of similar to what you're talking about. It's written by a guy named Dr. Christopher Ryan, and in the book he talks about like these problems, these issues that are happening, and then we offer the solutions to the problems we cause. And it's like a lot of people think they're problem solvers when they put the problem there. So it's like, do you solve these issues through an institution that helped, you know what I'm saying, bring this to life? You know what I mean? It goes deep into viruses and everything into that. It's a good book called Civilized to Death. But that line makes me think of that because it's like, yo, we're sitting here doing this. And it's like, all right, man, like that's cool. So you bought the broom to sweep the glass you broke. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Like what I forgot the quote, but it was like, you started a fire. You want me to thank you for putting it out. It's like, you want me to thank you for putting out the fire you started. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, take it even deeper than that. There's a great quote in history that like the Romans created a wasteland and then called it peace. And they're like, look how quiet it is. Look, we've stopped all of that. The Lydians aren't this and yada yada yada. It's like, you killed everybody. No birds because you burned everything to the ground. There's no crops. But it's quiet. It's okay. So there is a bit of that where you kind of like connect the dots. A bunch of motherfuckers going, we're trying to help you people. I fucking go online and write about you. I'm helping. And it's like, it's a lot more you need to understand of like why you're even doing this. You
Most
know what
people
I mean?
are very self-serving when it comes to this
Oh,
shit,
of
man.
course. It's intrinsically
all the way down to the
serving
social
them.
media fucking influencers and shit. They go out there and fucking give shit to homeless people and everything, but have to like videotape it all.
but
too,
I
right?
mean,
There's always some sort of like
there's
ulterior motive.
There's a thing with that though, right? Because like intrinsically, I think like if you really think a thought all the way to like the end, being selfish and selfless are always going to be like the same decision, because if you really understand how the world works, your world is going to get better when your surroundings get better. Like you can only fine tune yourself so much beyond your surroundings, and then you're going to hit a wall with that. So like whether you're trying to act selfishly or selflessly, it should kind of end up in the same ballpark, because both roads lead to the same answer.
So what you're describing right now is what they call hyper individualism. And there's a guy named Adam Curtis who, if he was here, would flip this table. Okay, he just goes fucking crazy. Like Russell Brand sounds like you, and he goes, "Shut the fuck up! You're just on this shit." And one of the things is, firstly, you're not wrong, because you know. What you're describing is you're amalgamating things that you see are in a sense in the same lane. But what he describes is he goes, look, this fucking hippie shit in the 60s, they took this civil rights thing of we're going to sacrifice ourselves for the greatness of the community. We're going to do like, when a ship is sinking, they're like, get the women and the kids off. The guys aren't like, if I get off, my women and kids are fine. It's like, nah, get the women and the kids off. Now we don't want gender roles, but that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. You know what I mean? I love to see like a fire, and they're like, hey, I I need the women and kids. I was like, I'm not moving till you get this right. I'm not moving. Come on, man. We're going to learn something today. But
a lot of flexible moments there.
yeah, but what you're describing, it's crazy. I read I actually, hypernormalization is a good doc about this, Adam Curtis, but he talks about the hyper individualized movement, and it stems from these people who go, you can't beat the man, you can't improve the world by going outside and sacrificing yourself. It's a fucking, it's a stupid game. It's because they started sort of like putting that they would merge that with people who went and try to shoot up City Hall. They died that day. It's like, what did you really do, right? So, but that individualized kind of like hippie-esque kind of like outtake, what happens is you get a bunch of people that are like, you know, sort of Monty Python, where they go, I forgot, he goes, hey guys, you're all individuals, you all make independent choices, and then they all go, we're all individuals, we all make independent choices. So you have these individuals all repeating the same mantras. And one of the things that is argued, and also a couple of friends of mine argue this, is what happens is in the 60s and 70s is big corporations and industry decides to go, oh, you want to be the better version of yourself in a Jesus-y way, and if you improve you can then help the world. Well, we have just the thing to sell you. And we have just the thing to sell you on. Entrepreneurialism and so on and so forth. And it's like, if you improve yourself, you can help the world. And that's because people believe in the merged, selfless, selfish thing and whatnot, and in many cases they sort of amalgamate. But the flip side to that, and I'm not here to flip the table on you, I don't completely disagree with you, because I'm a indoctrinated selfish person. I grew up in this, you know, literally my fucking mom and my dad was telling me stories of Jesus when I was a kid, and it was like, if I improve me, the world would be better. But it's like, no, it's not. It's not at all. That's not how it works. You won't improve anything until you have an external view of how to improve the world. Doesn't mean you have to sacrifice yourself in some fucking...
Yeah, you don't gotta be a martyr.
Yeah, don't martyr yourself. But at the same time, you have to sacrifice those selfish ambitions, that's where the ego comes in. Because the ego there's this great book called Spiritual Materialism. And one of the things he says is, he's like, ego finds its way in everything. And you could be like this yoga teacher who's meditating 4 times a day, but you could be like, I think I'm better than people now because I meditate and I've tapped into my chakras. These bitches out here, they don't really know what's going on. They need to come to me, and I know they don't know this and they don't know that, yet their lives are fucked up. They can't manage relationships. They barely talk to their sisters. They have all this shit, but they don't tell themselves that. They think everybody else is broken or everybody else's energy's off, and whatever fucking card reading they got that validates their own shit. So we are, to me, in my view, and I used to talk to Bender about this actually, I believe we're slaves of convenience. I believe like human beings will literally synthesize whatever shit they want to tell themselves for, you know, I think we intellectualize things and philosophize things, because if we broke it down on a surface level, we're really just fucking serving ourselves.
Yeah.
Straight up, man. It's all about self-survival. So, yeah.
I'm not political, but I told this story before. I have a conservative neighbor and a liberal neighbor. And they're very political. And during the pandemic, God just puts me in these weird positions. I had to do shit for the conservative family. And I was hanging out with the liberal family because they were close to me. So the conservative family's all pro-guns, you know, pro-abortion, the Lord, you know, fuck, man, like these liberals, these gender roles, they fucking us. They want to teach racial this and that, you know. So they're all going crazy. And then also, I also have to call them out on this. They also think that everything about other people applies to them. Just because people don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I'm like, don't become the person that they want you to be.
We're saying they can exist, not you have to be them.
Yeah, don't, you know, like if, you know, like some comedians that get canceled, they become all right. And it's like, yo, don't do that. Because they'll put their arms around you and go, the left just tried to cancel them. Come here and hang out with us, you know? Well, and instantaneously, their dumbasses go, hey, Tucker Carlson, let me tell you what happened. And they start to have these, you know, they think they find their friends, and then you end up being Kanye, and you're like, these guys ain't care about us either.
Well,
You know what I mean?
as far as recruiters go, the right kill the fucking left because like the left are standing there and like you literally don't know when you're walking through the door if they're gonna eat you in the gate.
yeah.
Like you know what I mean? And the conservatives like, look, before we kill you, we'll give you a 20-year run until we have to because you gave us no choice.
Yeah,
right?
Malcolm X has the greatest shit about left and right. He talks about liberals and conservatives, and he's like, the liberal is the fox, and the conservative is a wolf. And he's like, the wolf cannot hide his taste for lamb chops. It's thirsty. The fox befriends it, comes really close, yada yada yada. So he's like, so if you ask me who I trust, the fox ends up with more lamb chops than the wolf because the wolf can't, so on and so forth. And he's like, I sometimes don't fear the wolf as much because I know their agenda. I know what they want. I can actually keep a better eye on them. I can't keep an eye on that fox. That fox is that fox is acting too friendly. So he compared the liberal to a fox and the conservative to a fucking wolf.
That's
and he's
pretty
like,
good
but look who
analogy.
ends up with more lamb chops. And this is in the fucking 60s, right?
Yeah.
So you have that. But I'll just say, I'll finish off like when I was in the pandemic, I was hanging with the liberal family, and then I went to help the conservative family with some shit because that family was sick or whatever. And the liberal family was like, why are you hanging out with them? Why are you doing this? And I didn't know that they were having a rap battle through signs in their house. Like in the front of their house, they were like battling. And they were like, we believe in this. And the other was like, fuck that house across the street. And I had no idea. I wasn't paying attention.
You're like, I don't read street signs.
Yeah. I thought all your houses was for sale. I had no idea. I had no idea you guys were cracking like political.
Election coming?
Yeah, it was fucking weird. So, anyways, because the liberal family's like, why are you hanging out with them? And I was like, man, these conservative people seem cooler than you because they're not really judging me like me hanging out with you. Then I hung out with the conservatives enough, and they're like, fuck you hanging out with those liberals over there. And I'm like, God damn it, all right. But my experience with both of them was like so fucking like enlightening because, I've never not thought this, but this was like put in front of me. So I was like, oh my God, this is the world. Now, at least. Where the liberal family and the conservative family, though they post the completely different things and like if you juxtapose it, it looks like they're living completely polar opposite lives and like they're the antithesis of this. Bro, they go to the same Targets, go to the same malls, go to the same food spots, eat the same shit, watch the same shit on Netflix. Their fucking queues are lined up.
They've got different content they talk about at dinner.
What does it fucking matter if you're both, you order the turkey and you order the chicken? It's like, y'all the same motherfuckers. And I'm wondering how much of us start to like separate things when in reality people live in the same lives. And that's my thing of sacrifice. I think that if, in the past, you could distinguish between two groups of people because of the way they lived, not because of what they said and what they thought. And that's why I think technology hurts us. You know what I mean? In the 60s, you could go, these motherfuckers just up and left. Oh, word? Why? Because shit's hitting the fan. What happened to the house? They don't care. They're trying to fucking make the world better. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
These days, it's like, did you see what I posted? You know what I mean? And it's like, so I think that's where it's a bit tricky. You know what I mean? But all of this because you said you were, you selfish, and you made the comparison.
Oh,
Look
yeah.
What you started.
Hey, a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Who do you
You guys
find
keep going, I'll be right back.
more pushy or easier, religious people or political people when it comes to fucking agenda? And
Nowadays the political people.
Yeah.
But I think in the past it used to be religious.
Yeah,
people.
it's kind of like shifted. Fucking.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It used to there used to be that was the big.
Well, the
group,
religion.
like, the big
Well, the
side that
religion was sort
always
of.
tryna-
Well, the religion was more merged with the state before. It was a little bit more connected. Like they still talk about it. Like evangelists still run this Bible Belt town, and it's like in reality, it's like their kids aren't really living the lives that their fucking grandfathers lived or whatever. But I think that to me, like at least now, political people, because even religious people now, even though they'll walk in a church and I think politically they don't even see the world the same. You know what I mean? Although they might agree on, certain things like homosexuality or whatever the fuck, but now I'm hearing about Christian schools who are like, yeah, gay's cool. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah,
and it's
like
like,
complete 180 on that shit.
yeah,
Since
we've
the Pope
updated.
Fucking said it's okay and whatnot.
Yeah, we've updated it. Like, Jesus is for the gays now. And it's like, what, since when?
Well, that's what the church has always been good at doing, right? If
Really
they
good.
can't beat something, like throughout all the years of like them taking over fucking civilizations all over
Yeah.
the fucking world and shit like that, right? And the whole crusades, everything like that. Eventually, if they can't fucking beat something,
Oh, yeah.
they'll just make it their own.
Yo, Catholicism and Christianity, any form of Protestants, they're good at adjusting because, you know, if you just go by like some biblical shit, you're not so. I think it says something like stone a virgin woman on her wedding day, a non-virgin. Excuse me, stone a non-virgin woman on her wedding day, but you don't go to like a place that's like Spain or whatever by Portugal and go, hey, what happened yesterday? They stoned 4 non-virgins. But these are real Christian states, you know what I mean? But I do think that, like there is a flexibility amongst like, because it's been so merged with government, there's a good way to do it. I think Islam is now starting to kind of confront those things of Christianity, which is we need to sort of upgrade and update our principles. You know what I mean? Like they're battling some of these issues that like Christianity's battled for hundreds of years. You know what I mean?
It's kind of weird though, because like Middle Eastern countries are starting to get a little bit more progressive and everything.
100%.
And then all of a
100%.
sudden they're a complete fucking
Hell yeah,
180
Saudi
too.
Arabia is trying to detach themselves from like half of like all these different countries because they're like, hell fucking nah, I can't believe in the UAE in Dubai you guys are allowing this and you let women do this and so on and so forth. Like absolutely.
The fucking weird thing is though is most of that shit was all cool back in the 60s anyways. It wasn't until fucking certain religious fucking sects that like took over power and shit like that fucking
Right. Well, Islam's
Hamas and other shit like that.
Islam's a little bit different because there's all this room for translation with Christianity. With Islam, there's no room for translation. It's like this was given to God for Muhammad. There's no 15 middlemen. The Old Testament's written by like mad fucking, fucking prophets. The New Testament's written by all these fucking disciples who act as prophets, and they don't even have like prophet qualities, but they could describe a prophet. Islam doesn't fuck around. Islam's like, this is God to this particular person. You may not pass your prophet test if you're a Jew, but they don't fuck around. So Islam's always going to be a little bit more like less with the now that because I have a lot of Muslim friends. I have a really good friends in that region, and now they're starting to sort of debate texts a little bit. And bro, they're as deep as like you could wear your headscarf to your shoulder, but if you wear it below that, off with your head type shit.
But that's just
but
straight up
they're
comes
now
down-
starting to progress over that. But just like with any other religion, you have different dominant sectors. Like with Christianity, you'll have a dominant sector that's like, yo, if you don't believe in the Holy Trinity, everybody's burning out here.
Yeah,
Then you have
3,000 sects of Christianity.
100%. And then you have a dominant sector that's like, yo, no, you don't have to believe in the Holy Trinity because the Holy Trinity is like whatever. Then you have a dominant sector that'll be like, yo, polygamy's cool because these 3 words here and fucking whatever. And then you'll have another dominant sector that's like, polygamy's cool? What? Like, like it's not
That's the
gonna happen.
problem with fucking when there's no separation between church and state. Is like if you look at Israel and other countries around there
Yeah.
in the 60s, there was no fucking headscarves. They weren't fucking made to wear burqas. Fucking women were walking around fucking wearing the exact same type of fucking outfits that women over in fucking the
Well,
US and here
in
were wearing. and shit.
certain countries.
It
yeah, in
was
certain countries, yeah.
it was in like the late 70s, early 80s or something like that fucking
It depends on the country
a
because
couple countries fucking the whole power shifted and fucking the people that took over power were from
it depends on the country.
fucking
Like Iran's
religious
been
sect.
pretty consistent for like the last 300 years. Like,
Yo, if
just-
this is my first podcast, I'm shadow banned as fuck.
yo,
I'm talking about Israel specifically.
Israel, yeah, but Israel's a Jewish state. So that's
Was
a
it
little
Israel?
bit
I
different.
think because like there's I've seen fucking pictures of the Middle East in like the 60s and shit like that.
Yeah,
and they
cer-
were fucking, they were
Lebanon, certain
yeah,
spots
they
like
weren't having to cover up at
certain
all and
spots
shit
in-
like that.
certain
And then
spots
all of a
in
sudden,
Lebanon-
fucking shit changed in the late 80s or something
certain
like that.
spot. Well, after World War II, a lot changed, and there was a lot of revolts over there. But it just depends where, because the Middle East has a lot of different. Life in Iraq and Iran are not like life in Lebanon. Like we assume it's all the same, but it's not. Can I pee real quick? And
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. I mean,
sure,
that's exactly what I just went to do. So yeah, you're good.
Switch this back over this way.
Is
Oh,
it still
motherfucker.
going or is it paused?
No, we're still going here. I could always just fucking go to a pause screen, so I wouldn't mind a fucking dab, and I could just throw up the fucking old fireplace, you know?
Yeah, if you want to do a pause screen for like a minute, we'll be
Look
right
at this,
back.
bam. All right, we're just gonna turn on the fireplace, motherfuckers, and then you guys. Yo, and we're back again here, chilling with J Reds and Nino Bless.
Yo, yo.
With me, MC Ironfoot. Just talking about life, talking about fallen heroes, talking about hip hop.
Yeah, we barely talked about hip hop.
Yeah, I got a question for
Probably
you.
like the one thing we should talk about.
When did you first start rapping? I know it's a broad,
Oh no, yeah,
generic question, but I'm curious.
I always ask people, professionally or just in general.
Just in general.
I
Like,
think I
when
was
did
like
you?
10 or 11 writing raps. I
Yeah.
think I was writing raps about 10 or 11 years old.
Fuck, that's pretty early.
Here, I've got to ask a little bit of this over the years, but I'll go right in with you in the same ballpark sort of thing. Like, give us your elevator pitch on the origin of Nino Bless, because I know it's quite expansive. There's so much.
I actually ran through this because I'm doing a podcast for my album. So I kind of like ran through this pretty quickly and shit. And I thought it was going to take like an hour just to get to like Slaughterhouse. But like, look, truth be told, like most cats, a little bit different. What's different about my story is that I've noticed from people that aren't from New York is they're influenced by the music they hear online, and they hear this shit, and they're influenced by a guy from Minneapolis and or another state, another place, and they find like a sense of comfort in listening to somebody like them or that thinks like them across the world. You know?
Oh, fuck me.
Jeez.
Yeah, fuck shit right up. Anyways, jeez, this wasn't clipped in. I was trying to get this down out of your face, and I fucked up all the whole.
Nah, you're good. Let me know if the audio's good.
Audio's good. Just getting. Yeah, I was trying to bring that. It's fucking good.
That's
there.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. But like the one thing I mean,
Just
listen,
fuck
let me
shit
tell you,
up, man.
don't even edit that out because the people
the
love
gravy,
to
that's
see
the
the
gravy.
yeah, people want to, that's how they know it's fucking happening. You know what I
It's
mean?
not an AI.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
straight
AI.
up, man.
Yeah, this isn't Chat GPT. You know what I mean? But yeah, like the thing with me is like, I guess the only difference with me and like I don't want to speak for anyone in Edmonton because there was artists out here and shit like Swollen Members or whatever the fuck. But they're from here, from Vancouver.
They're from BC, yeah.
They're from BC. Never mind. So I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Edmonton had Cadence Weapon. That was really the biggest.
Oh,
thing that came out of
you.
here.
I remember you put me on to those dudes. But yeah, for me,
forgot all
it was
those
like
fuckers.
everybody around me was rapping, and there was a lot of battling and in the streets, and there was always somebody pumping their mixtape. There was always somebody trying to rap. So for me, it was the proximity thing was like it was unavoidable, and it was just like, oh shit, everybody likes doing this. All my friends, you know,
It wasn't a culture you got into. It was just the culture you were
Yeah.
surrounded by.
I tried to escape it. I did jujitsu. I played baseball. I tried to get into theater. I tried to get into the first job I ever got was outside of like some shit when I was a shit job that my dad got me when I was a teenager or whatever. But the first real job I ever got was working at an advertising company. I was like, oh, I'm fucking gonna do this. I could dress however I want, sit around and just name perfumes all day, like or whatever the
I
fuck.
can see you like doing theater.
Theater, I wanted
Right,
to get
like-
into. Yeah.
Oh, totally. You have enough vocal skills. Like you pronunciate well. You fucking your delivery, everything. Like you know what I mean. Your
Appreciate
timing
it.
and shit like that. I can see
Appreciate
you
it.
fucking doing
It's
theater.
some of it was even like what Lin-Manuel's doing, where he's writing his own shit. And I've always thought about writing like stuff, and I still think I might. But my mind was always there. But the rap shit was just like motherfuckers keep dragging you out, and we're doing rap shit, dragging you out. So I kind of was just like, all right. And then I got into battling when I was a teenager, and then eventually I started becoming part of a group. From the group, motherfuckers was like, I started seeing opportunities with this. I had friends who ended up becoming something like a Moto Tech and guys like that.
Yeah, because you went to school with Tech, right?
No. Me and Tech met on a forum, and
okay.
some kid told Tech I could beat him in a battle. And so it's like this guy will smoke you. Tech's like, yeah, out of your fucking
It's a
mind.
hell of a meet cute.
Yeah. And me and Tech just connected on a forum, and we ended up meeting in person, like at one of these events. And I was too young to even get into fucking events. And
That's my story too.
yeah. And we ended up meeting through Pumpkinhead, and I met Pumpkinhead through one of my
Oh,
homeboys.
geez, that's a fucking connection.
There you go. And a lot of it was like my friends knew this guy who knew this guy. But when I met Tech, a lot changed because Tech right then and there was getting booked in different places. Right then and there, you know, some of his first out-of-state bookings was because of me. Like I set some of them shits up. And I started like being like a little networker. And I was like, I'm going to be a networking guy. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to be a networking guy. And then again, that guy that drags you to a place and he's like, I'm writing raps for this artist and I'm writing for this. And it's like, fuck, like, okay, I'm here in front of a beat, in front of a producer, writing a rap and got an opportunity to get paid for writing shit. And then one thing led to another. And then eventually enough people were around me that were like, I think you should just rap. Like, you rap pretty good. You know what the fuck you're doing. I think you should rap.
Which is like the reverse rapper origin story, because it's just like, I swear to God, I can rap. Somebody believe me, I can rap.
Yeah, I never pushed my mixtape on nobody.
You're like fucking easy, but you actually write.
Right. Well, I tell you, like, I actually like aggressively push towards people not listening to my shit. I'm not one that ever asked my friends to come to the show. There's not a friend out there could be like, oh, he asked me for support. He told me to come to a show. I never told them about shows. My whole idea coming into this was like, if I can't get people to like my music, I don't want to get my friends to support my music. I want to get people to like my shit and just know me for raps. My friends know me for me as who I am.
Yeah.
And then the people know me for my rap shit. So I've never been one that's like, I look at people who go, like, they'll put Facebook posts out and shit. Like, there was a cat in Florida who was like, some of my own friends support rappers that are terrible, but they won't come to my shows.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would you do that to your friends?
Yeah.
That's a fucked up thing to put your friends. I mean, at least, more power to whoever's listening to this going, fuck you. I want my friends to come to my shit. That's cool. You could have that perspective. But for me, I don't want my friends to fucking, watch me play Pin the Tail on the Donkey at my party and they can't play. Like,
well, I want my friends to, if they want to,
Yeah.
like if that's the scene they want to be at, but I don't want to shoehorn them in there if that's not their space.
I mean, that's cool too. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Show up, you got your own things. You don't need to like be obligated to come out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot cooler than telling. I mean, but I just never, like, so for me, once I started getting into this, I didn't understand the professionalism that it took to do what I was doing, because I was already a professional, but I had no idea. No one told me that. And I didn't realize that most rappers were lazy. Most rappers couldn't finish shit.
You're like, oh, wow, the bar's real low here. I can do real well.
I was lazy too as well. Like, don't get it. Like, I always say the creative process is very lazy. I don't care who you are. It looks like you're not doing shit for 2 hours. You're literally just sitting around going, got thoughts. I don't know. And you're sitting there for 2 hours until like something hits you. The creative process looks lazy as fuck.
Still burns calories just fucking sitting there thinking that.
Yeah, 100%. But I didn't know I was a professional. I didn't know like writing raps the way I was, getting paid, and I was getting paid, and guys around me.
You
like,
skip the whole fucking starter step, and you're like, oh fuck, I didn't even have to do that. I'm already here. Like,
by the time I did my first show, I was like, why am I on stage? Like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I didn't do the open mic shit. Because let me tell you the different thing between New York and, I don't want to say Canada, but today's hip-hop culture, right? Well, my day and age, Tech from Smith & Wesson would host a show at a fucking event, or EO-Dub or some shit. And if a kid went on stage and grabbed the mic wrong, or his set was off, or the vocal track was there, they would grab the mic from the guy and go, get the fuck off stage, B. Get the fuck out of here. Get your set right before you come back. You couldn't pay to open up. There was no, oh, you pay to open up and people can hear you. It wasn't this fucking neoliberal capitalistic system where it's like, if you paid this money, you will be perform in front of 50 Cent or whatever. My shit was all like, you lucky if you could get on the stage, and if they let you stay on the stage, and your shit better be right. So like, I wasn't trying to step into that world and go like, I look at kids that are like
Shark Tank.
Fuck yeah. And it was like, it was also,
Now it's a guppy pool.
and it was also the Lions Den. Like, it was like, it looked like everybody was, because I didn't know this back then, but I know this now. Everybody was good around me. Everybody was high level. Like, even my boys who don't rap, one of my boys now is a fucking chef. And the shit he used to say back in 03, 04, like, my 2 Glocks are Tupac ya. And when you get to heaven, you could tell Big who shot you. He was so incredible, and he's a chef. He's not even
I
rapping.
love how you have that line like dialed in.
Because I remember, like, I was like in a group with him, and I was like, why am I here? Like, and then, on my joint, on my first song ever for the clip with Coogee Rap. I know I'm like going all over the place. You asked me one question.
This is what I wanted you to do.
Oh,
You're
okay.
good. You're good.
Okay. But my first record ever with Coogee Rap, I had a line and I was like, these kids talk and give off the impression like they don't know who shots is a rhetorical question. That was like my spin on it. And mad rappers like Joe Budden even was like, this is such a fire line. That line's so cool. And I remember just thinking, my boy's rhymes better than that. Like they don't even know I'm like the third best. But I think that's coming into this shit. I think I'm not trying to like stunt, but like for me, I genuinely was like an imposter. I was like I had imposter syndrome for a while until the fucking guys that put me on the album, like a Joe Budden, Razzcazz, and Crooked Eye, and I started working with these guys, and then they were like, yeah, you're here. Like, you're in the, what do you mean, when? What do you mean, when? You're in, you know what I mean? And I didn't know that. And, yo, even sometimes you forget. I'll say something real quick. Slug of Atmosphere, just let me hear one of his albums. Like, not the new one. It might have been the album I'm on, or maybe the Halloween record. I don't remember. No. It was a preview of the new record now. Yeah. Yeah. And Ant and him, this was just a few months ago. We was in Fresno, and I told Slug my take on his raps and like some of the lines he said. And he just looks at Ant and he goes, "You see that, Ant? Like, this is a real rapper, bigging up my pen." And I thought he was trolling. And Ant's like, "Yeah, if Nino said it." And I was like, these dudes look at me like I'm a real rapper. Like, what do they think of themselves? Like, you guys are legends. What are you talking about? But they come from such a different world that they look. I mean, I'm not going to speak for Slug, but he looks at me as a different type of MC. Like, so hard to make it from where you came from. So he's reminded me of that. So like that's
I think that's a respect thing that he has though, because he had to in an inverse way it was the same thing for him, because nobody gave a fuck about them where they were, and so they had to fucking create it out of thin air, and it's different, the same but different, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
of course. Yeah. He was a bit outcasted as well in the beginning, and I think he got an album called that. So like, so he knows what time it is. But yeah, so that's it. But that's basically my story. Like, I came in, I started writing, and then kind of got nudged in, and initially I wanted to network, and then I got the bug. I was like, once I realized like I was a professional before I realized it, I was like, I know what a deadline is. I know how to isolate myself. I know how to cut people off. That's easy,
You just looked at it like a job instead of like a fucking hobby.
Yeah, 100%. Like, once I knew I could do, like, other guys, like, yeah, he's not done with the 7 songs yet, and I'm like, it's been 2 months. Like, what was he doing? Like, I don't know. And I'm just like, I could do 7 songs.
That's the part of the creative process that is lazy and what separates you from other people. Like, the amount of content that is in Rhyme of the Decade, that's more than a lot of dudes' entire catalog. Right, like, that one song, you wrote more words than they did in their whole life.
Right.
Do you still write for other people? Just
did I write for people?
Do you still write for people?
No. You know what? On occasion, I'll write like references for like TV stuff, and they'll just take the reference templates and kind of like pitch it, and I'll get some credit for that. But something. What did you just made a point real quick? You were talking about what was it that you just said? You just made a quick point about the writing thing. Rhyme of the Decade. Yeah. So, context. Rhyme of the Decade, nobody knows what the fuck we're talking about. It's an 8.5 minute song, and it's a sequel to Rhyme of the Year. So I just wanted to apply context, and it's an 8.5 minute record. But that's another thing, because some of my friends be like, yo, you don't get tired of writing 5-6 minute records? And I'll just like, not egotistically, again, I just be like, I cut those records short. I think people realize what I'm doing. Like, I have mastered the 5 minute record because I genuinely just, I stay in the dojo. But I think part of what helps me is I have selfishly chose this. I've been a bad boyfriend. I have had some terrible relationships.
Made sacrifices.
Yeah, fucked
there.
up on. I've been a neglectful sibling at times. And I've selfishly pursued this to just, and not intentionally, not like, I'm going to be, it's just like, I look back and I go, how the fuck were you dealing with me? You know what I mean? So in the past, to get to where I'm at, there's a lot of isolation. There's a lot of isolating yourself and distancing yourself, and no routine, all routine at the same time. And you're just like, I have no routine, but at the same time I do. It's like fucking weird, and you're kind of like stuck in this weird world.
That's just like excellence in any fucking aspect, whether it's sports, fucking music. I mean, that's usually what happens, right? In order to get to where you want to be. Kind of have to fucking shut out the world and just fucking grind for a while. And
Bro,
shit,
to the
right?
point,
It's
to the
hard
point,
to fucking balance both.
to the point that when you watch like a famous coach or somebody who is like great at their craft, they always go, yeah, you know, and the kids are like, Dad likes football. Dad was just, and they always talk about how maniacal they were. All he thought about was the game. And then at the end of the doc, it's like, yeah, his wife fucked, you know, the other coach. Like she found another husband or another, you know, and it's like all these, it's not like a accident why some of these people, like this shit ends up in divorce. You know what I mean? And, you know, I watched the Kubrick documentary and I was like, oh, his marriage worked because he did a movie every 6 years. You know what I'm saying? Like he was obsessed with family and movies. That was his shit, you know, and he was a little too connected to that. But then there's other directors who like they're on fucking wife number 4, but it's just like, yeah, they can't stay still.
Because they're working fucking 7 days a week, fucking 12 months out of the year. They just keep going, and it's from one fucking project to the next.
And they let the project guy dumb. Whereas Kubrick was like, in this Kubrick documentary I've seen, he built the set of what's the movie with the snipers that he did, the early '80s, the one with the, you don't know what I'm talking about?
The fucking army line. I know the one you're talking
Full
about.
Metal Jacket. Yeah. If he built a
one of the
set
scenes in my head, but I couldn't think of the
nah,
fucking
you're
name.
good. He built a set for Full Metal Jacket like close on his house. Because he's like, I don't want to. They're like, what happened going to the Philippines, Stan? Are we not going? He's like, my daughter's 15 now. Like, I'm just going to chill right here. Yeah. And he would go shoot on the set and then go home. Meanwhile, everybody else is in the fucking trailer. So I'm like, well, that's how you make a marriage work. You know what I mean? Like, that's a little bit different than you're letting the project guide you. I'm not Kubrick. All my projects are guided by whatever forces are guiding me. I've never managed something and then been able to manage, you know, everything else around me. It's been a little bit difficult, you know what I mean, in that sense.
Yeah, that's the all-being battle, you know, trying to strike that balance. I don't know if there is a balance if that even properly exists. There's nothing healthy about being the best at anything. Like,
and just imagine having that control though, like for movie fucking XX, or like, to be a director and to be able to just be like, you know what? No, we're shooting in my fucking yard.
Yeah, it's great.
Right, and then and the fucking bigwigs just be like, all right, yeah, whatever you want, buddy. Fucking any other director, like.
Yeah.
Like,
and you gotta got balls for that because the studios, he's already in the studio era. So studios are like, well, no, like we save money we get tax breaks. Like fucking India owes us money. Let's go over there. They're gonna let us shoot there for nothing. Then they're gonna pay us. Like, and he's just like, nah. And it's like when you have that pull, it's flexing that pull. That's one thing when I watched that doc, I did say to myself, man, I need to know how to set boundaries better, which is what I do want, what I don't want, you know, what's fair to me and what isn't fair to me. It's not that I've never done that, but you do have to be a little bit, if there's something to be maniacal about, it is the fucking boundary setting, you know, because
that's 100% true.
You could get, because if you, like, I read a thing, I don't think I told you this yet. I read this memo or whatever the fuck, like 10, 12 years ago called Hell Yeah or No. Did I ever tell you about that one?
No.
And it's called Hell Yeah or No. Pull that up, Jamie. And it basically describes like if something is presented to you, if it's not a hell yeah, say fucking no. Because if you agree to this mediocre shit just to be agreeable, don't complain when your life is mediocre. You've said yes to all the mediocre shit. Now, I know it's very egotistical to be like, yeah, I need this. But when I read it, I remember thinking, all this mediocre shit is my fault? Like, like what? Like I'm blaming, and it's not that it was gospel to me, but it was just right in front of me to where like it made sense. And I was like, okay, so when I say yes to all this shit, I can't complain about my life being So now I'm just like, I say no all the time to the point where, look, if Fashion watches this, he's a legend in hip hop. But if Fashion watches it, he will co-sign. I am a no. I am a no. Like this guy could get me to do shit. 99% of people can't. It's no. I don't care about your shit. What's your show? I don't. No. Like I'm a very hell yeah that excites me or no. You know what I mean? And I think as artists we should be that way. Like we should very, very much because we are very like I don't think artists realize how agreeable they are. Like a lot of people call rappers assholes and they'll be like, that guy's an asshole. But he just said no to some stupid shit he didn't want to do in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's like I've seen that play out a lot of times where people think guys are dicks because of how they manage what's the shit where you start doing the shit before the shows? You start signing shit in.
Autographs.
Now the meet and greets.
Meet and greet,
I've
yeah.
seen rappers like kind of check out of those. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, you're a fucking human being. Like you caught me on a fucking bad Tuesday. You want
Yeah.
you, and maybe that person told them to do it at 3, but now it's 4:30, and now they have. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of elements to this that I started realizing being in this. So yeah, like you said, it's almost an impossible way to balance. But add that with the fact that we have the tendency to just not know what's the best thing for us, and we're just like, all right, yeah, okay, yeah, I got you since you did this for me 3 years ago, Colin. Like, and then like all of a sudden you're stuck fucking running some shit gig, and then you're like, oh fuck, am I running some shit gig, fucking Colin? And it's like you didn't set your boundaries, and that's the thing that I'm really cognizant of right now. Like I'm really on some like, nah, I don't even want to hear it. Like, look, I love Organic to death. He wants me to help him with the September event. If you don't know it from now, he will soon. I'm not doing it because it's either hell yeah or no. Like that's it. Because the way I put my shit in is like if I say yes, you're not just getting my yes. You're getting way too much and shit that I can't say control. You know what I mean? I can't manage how deep I go into stuff. I write 9-minute songs, so I clearly don't know my own limit. So it's like if I say yes, it's like oh fuck. Like I'm really diving in. So I'm always just like now I'm being very mindful of this shit. Like 4 years ago, I would have told Organic, hell yeah, let's do it again. And now I'm just like, too much goes into this.
I understand completely. I mean, I won't lie. Like I'm not in the best condition to even be doing the fucking podcast right now, sort of thing, right? And if you were like any other like rapper that was in the city that we had access to at another time, when you guys like asked me last night, I probably be like, nah, tomorrow's probably not good for me. Like I would have said fucking no, sort of thing, right? Like not saying that like I'm in a lot of pain or that like, I can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? But
You're
as far
picking your spots.
as far as my boundaries go, right? Like yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that you're flying out of here and like who knows when we're gonna get a chance again, I would have probably said no to tonight too.
For sure. You're picking your spots.
I should be fucking in bed resting right now. Sort of shit still, right? But
yeah, you pick your spots, bro. Like I mean, you know, like.
But I mean, there's still like you know that feeling of like you know fucking not obligation, but you know what I mean, wanting to fucking.
Well, look. The Stay Forever event for Pat. The
go with the flow, and I mean, you know, help everybody sort of thing too, right? So
the Stay Forever for Pat was at the end of February. I got told about it in December. Shit ran like a fucking. I can't even putting this out there, but it wasn't a well-oiled machine. There was maybe this, I don't know, day 1, maybe day 2. And it was just like, none of these people want to do this. And, you know, I can't, and Organic could co-sign this. The amount of times he called my phone going, this guy said no. And then I'll call him back and go, it's a yes now.
Yeah.
It's like, it has to be like 60% of the roster.
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted to do this shit at first because people don't fucking know. They don't believe in real altruism. They're like really organic for Pat's family. And I had to sit there and really have human-to-human conversations with motherfuckers. Bro, that's like 13 hours of just communicating as a human to get a task done because I can't just tell them do a task because I'm asking them to donate something for free, you know? But I picked my spots because, look, I wanted to drop my album. My album was already delayed, as you know.
Yeah.
Pat's there fucked my album up anyway. Like, sorry, Pat, that's the truth. But, like, my bad. But when he passed, I was like, what the fuck? My album's supposed to drop 11/11. I was moving that week to drop a fucking video, and I was just like, fuck this video. Because I just lost my man, and I don't even feel like doing this. And it was like, do what he wanted you to do. It's like, you know, here's a part about this that makes the most sense. I don't know, because he's not around.
Yeah.
You know, what the fuck? So losing him already kind of messed that up. And then after that, Organic hit me, and I was just like, you know what? This is going to take another 2 months, but it was just something that was beyond me. It was for the family. It was like, this is not going to get another chance to get done for what I know. And, you know, it was something that I had to involve myself in. But, like, you know, like you're talking about, I had to pick my spots because it was like, I didn't want to do that in February. Like, yeah, who wants to start their year off just doing something for free, for charity, for a friend? And in my head, I'm like, Pat would totally want me doing things for myself. He would be like, take care of yourself first.
Yeah, get yours playing.
Yeah, get your shit first. But in my head, I was just like, why? I don't want to do what Pat thinks I should do. I want to do what's best for Pat's family.
Yeah.
Because Pat would tell me, man, go do whatever the fuck you want to do. That's what I told Hollahan. Like, he's not like that. He wouldn't tell us to do this for him.
Yeah.
He would be like, do what makes you feel best, because he understood how fragile the fucking psyche is, you know? And he was aware of that much. So for me, I was just like, fuck, I'm going to have to do that. So you got to pick your spots. You know, I initially said no to Ganic because I knew how much went into the people don't know what we're talking about. There was a King of the Dot Stay Forever event. There was a charity event for Pat Stay, and we raised quite a bit of money. I mean, close to almost $300K for
Holy fuck.
Yeah, for his family.
That's a fundraiser.
Yeah, 2-day event raising $300K in just donations, merch, the pay-per-view sales for the battle, and you know, I'm wearing the hoodie right now.
Yeah.
Jin got made. Shout outs to Jin, and but yeah, like I think setting boundaries is important. You know what I mean? And at that point, you got to pick and choose your spots. You can't just be like, yeah, no, whatever. I did set my boundary with you in April because it was too tight for me, and I had shit to do in April. But then I said, let's do it in May, and then I came here to do this shit in May. So that's as far as my boundary stretch with you. It's a month. And you've done stuff for me in a position where you never had to do stuff for me. You know what I mean? And you believed in me in ways that, you know, we broke bread in many different ways. Yeah. And you've extended beyond. So for me to be like, yeah, my album's not out. I don't want to tour. I'm not even bringing merch. But fuck it. He's got this cool thing that he's got going on. I could then tell my other homies about it. It'll help his shit. Like, this guy's extended for me. Let me extend for him. Not only is he paying me, but it's also maybe I can help this shit out go further than he wants it to go. Now I see the format. I couldn't fucking tell you what to do watching the shit on Twitch. Like, anything I'm going to tell you involving with Diss-Or-Daps or any collabs or whatever, or helping you get artists with this shit, or helping like another thing, watching this online, I would have never known anything. But being there in person, it's a whole different experience. I get to
really
understand.
Goes on to get to that point. It's
Yeah.
Fucking, yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, that means a lot to begin with. But no, I mean, I wanted to branch out and like have, you know, somebody come in with a little bit more swing and like officialness in the culture, and that could add that punch. And I also really wanted to, when we're bringing people in from another place, and it's like, I wanted to bring you here and expose people to you, as opposed to like there already being like a hot switch, like ready sort of thing. And so like the past method of shows, like how it was all getting built, like we would do that and we could do the show and people would see what was happening. But with having like the person we're trying to build the base for playing at the end of the show, and then, you know, even just out of the timeline, things stretch, people leave, like you don't get the full benefit out of that. And so I wanted to see what it looked like where we had a format that allowed us to put you in the middle of the show right when all the hype was happening, so like you could capitalize on that moment and then actually get that attachment to the people. So I want to see what the difference is between like how many people caught on from last time versus how many people catch on this time.
Yeah. Well, I've talked to like guys like Grant and Blitz and a bunch of other guys, and even Cripe, who's told me about other artists who have told them about me. And one thing that any area, not just Edmonton, is like, you know, I come back here when an album roll out with whoever other artist, you get that people who are like, yo, he did Diss-Or-Daps early on, you know what I mean? And they rock for that. So it's like motherfuckers who put on and do shit on another level. Like, dudes are trying to, you know, really fuck with you. You know, they're like, yo, he came out. Like, I still get hit up to do Toronto just because I did Lee's Palace, and we did like fucking, when you connected me with Robbie, I think we had like 350, 400 people there. And I remember Ganic was like, A, how did you get this venue? B, how the fuck you get all these people? Like,
yeah.
And I think just local artists in Toronto was like, you got to check this guy out. And they hadn't seen me in years. And they just brought mad people out. One of them, rest in peace, I hate this because just so many people we lost, but his name was Littles the General. Good homie of mine, was always cornering Pat too. He knew Pat because he lived in Scotia. But he was a Toronto hood rapper about 10 years ago. And he also ran street teams, managed guys. And yeah, like I remember he was like, what do you need out here? And I was like, well, I'm doing this show in Toronto. I didn't expect nothing. And he brought like fucking 120 people for me. Damn. You know what I mean? Yeah, and he's a homie I've known since 2009, 2010. I helped him get verses back in 2009 and 2010. But Toronto popped up heavy, you know what I mean, and represented. So it's like, and when I was on, before I went on stage, the artist that he had was on there. And he was like, this guy was out here when this dude was out. Yeah, I remember when these beat battles were out, he was out here for this. And all the people just ran up to the stage like, let's see this guy who was showing love to this beat, because the first time I ever got booked for Toronto was at a beat battle. That's how I got booked. I did a show during a beat battle, and like everybody was like, "Oh, he's not making beats, whatever." Like, whatever, man. Like, we're gonna see rap now, whatever. We want beats, but yeah, I did a beat battle show, and I got paid pretty well too. I remember feeling like I robbed them because I was like, no one cared about my songs. But eventually, like, people just came up to me. But yeah, like when I left that show, mad people came up to me like, "Yo, I remember you showing love to them beat battles and da 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 da." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember this type of shit." So that's why this type of stuff with the Diss-Or-Daps is like, yeah, if this shit gets super hot to where you got 400, 500 people and it's on season 4 or whatever the fuck, it's easy for me to be like, yeah, I did season 4, but it looks a lot better when me and Junk are like, we did this shit when it was a fucking in beta. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Junk
saying?
was the prototype.
Me and Junk could talk that shit. All these other dudes could just be like, yeah, back in 2024 I did it. You know what I mean? When it was hot or whatever the fuck. But me and Junk could sit there and be like, ain't nobody fucking. We was up there not just winging it. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it'll be interesting to see how it all progresses for sure. But if it unfolds properly, what it'll allow me to do is like the reason, like you said, like you grew up and you were surrounded by the culture, and so that is intrinsically why so many, like the status quo, the caliber that is acceptable there is so much higher.
Right.
And so, I mean, like when I started booking shows here, I've like nothing that I wanted to see was coming, and it's like, I mean, I remember going to see Greaves was the first person that, or even Atmosphere when I went to see him, wasn't a sold out show. I was seeing Greaves at Avenue Theater. There's like 14 people there, you know what I mean? And I was like, well, fucking people just need to get exposed, and that's gonna start it. And it's not like it just like catches like wildfire or anything, but if all they see are the only artists who are big enough to do the Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, Toronto hop, then they're only ever going to see the surface level of the culture. They're never going to be exposed to anything better, and then they're not even going to realize that they suck, or that the bar could be higher, or that they could be doing it differently, because all they see is the same shit over and over again. And it's like everybody's copying the system, and the system's broken. It doesn't even work, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And look, I don't know who's listening to this, but if any artists hear this, I'll share something. Like, I did a show in Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie is exactly what it fucking sounds like. Fucking Erie. And once there's a road, I don't know, remember the interstate. Half of the interstate looks developed. The other half looks like you travel back 47 years. It's fucking insane. And it's crazy. You clearly see the gentrified divide. Like, you see the fucking 38th parallel.
Poor folk live there.
Yeah. You see their version of the 38th parallel.
Clearly see the wrong side of the proverbial wrong side of the fucking
his North
tracks,
Korea, his South. Okay? Like, and when I did a show out there, the first show I ever rocked, about 50 people showed up. It was a weird show. And then the second show I did was for an event that they did. Like, it was like a big, like, their version of whatever 2-day event they could do with a bunch of shit. And I went out there and I rocked out, and I think it was like maybe 300, 350 people. And at the time I was like, oh, this is a pretty decent turnout. They were like, this is the greatest turnout we've ever had. And boom. And then when me and Cirque did the Audio Trip 2s and shit and the Red Pills, I remember one time he was like, you get a lot of sales from these random places. And I was like, oh yeah. And we were doing the what do you call this shit where you do 2, 3 at the same time, bundles. We were doing bundles, and he was like, you sell the weirdest, like the bundles would be up to $200 because you could just add shit. And he's like, you just randomly was $200 in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I was like, oh yeah, I've been out there. He's like, yeah, but you have like 8 sales out there. And I'm like, what? And I don't know if they all came from the show. I know 2 of them did specifically because I ended up texting all the people and calling them. But I just remember thinking, oh man, like, you do these little shows and you connect with people, and those 2 people that I hit up, because the other people didn't pick up their phone, because I just called people to thank them, and I was like, thanks for buying my shit. You remember I told you I did that? Yeah. And 2 people picked up, and I said, well, you at that show? They're like, yeah, I was at the first one. And then the other guy's like, me and my girl at the second one. We bought 2 bundles, one for her, one for you. Like, your show is so cool. And I try to tell people sometimes, it's like, yo, when I came here to Edmonton, you know, I fucking sold every shirt I had. I brought all these shirts here, and the first show we ever did here with Evil, fucking Evil was like, yo, who does your merch? Because you're just selling merch. And I'm like, I think it's the design. And like all these fucking, especially the girls, remember that. Yeah. They ran to the Illuminati Rejects, and me and Soldier was like, let's put 20 out just so it looks nice. And they all sold. All the girls was grabbing that shirt left and right. And I was like, what the fuck? But that you know, that's one of those things where I'll randomly see a girl following me online. I don't know who the fuck she is. And I'm like, and she'll be like, oh, dope stuff. And it's like from Edmonton or Alberta or whatever, maybe Calgary even. But she has like, shows me a picture of her in Illuminati Reject gear. And I'm like, oh, she bought my shit. And then she goes, are you still making music? And I'm like, that's somebody who I connected with in this space who wants more shit. So it's like when you do these small shows, I don't look at the value as in just the show. I look in the value as any connection, any network that could expand the network. But also like, you just never fucking know who's who. I've been around long enough to be like, you know, J. Cole, the first time I ever heard of him, my boy Elite was like, this guy makes beats. His name's J. Cole. And he's trying to pitch beats to Joe Budden. Can you make the plug? And I'm like, what's his name? He's like, J. Cole. He's like, oh, he raps too. So where in my life, Elite, if you ever listen, co-sign this, J. Cole was trying to get on as a producer. Networking wise, not as a rapper. And I was like, all right, I'll send some of his beats to Joe Budden. And I sent some beats off to Joe Budden. Fuck, I know J. Cole's going to be in a year and a half. Like, what the fuck just happened, right? I met Kendrick Lamar in California when he was K-Dot. I didn't know who the fuck he was, you know what I mean? He didn't know who I was. We met because we was at a J-Rock thing. Well, I had no idea Kendrick was going to be fucking Kendrick. I wasn't like we became friends or anything, but he's like, kind of rubbed shoulders with him. Nipsey Hussle. Yeah. Like, I remember all these guys coming to New York for the first time and kind of like rubbing shoulders with them, not knowing at all. Like, Nipsey's first show was in New York, was in SOBs, hosted by one of my best friends, Poison Pen, and one of my closest friends in the world, Shot Stimuli, was performing that night. And I remember going to that show, saw Nipsey, but it was like no one knew who he was, and we're just sitting there. So it's like I've been around long enough to go, you just never know who's who, and just respect everybody, stay humble, and you're always like fucking one step, 1 degree of separation from the craziest shit. You know, like who would know that like Windex, right? Yeah. And I'll tell you a funny story. What's his shit? What's the name? The actual name?
DTG.
What is it? DTG. So Hollow the Don's son knows DTG. He doesn't know Eminem. He has no idea who Eminem is. He doesn't know Eminem. He knows who the guy doing Eminem is because he has social media. So he's the celebrity to Lennon, who's Hollow the Don's son. And Hollow the Don told him that in Toronto, and DTG was like, well, what? Like, what are you talking about? And literally the birthday gift for Hollow's kid was him doing a Eminem impression, like, hey Lennon, happy birthday, have it your way, you know, like, heard you like football and this and that, well come in here, you know what rhymes with Buccaneer, you know, he just did a Southern Spear, you know, and then he had like other celebrities on the shit for Lennon, and it's like, bro, like I know the origins of his story, you know what I mean, which is like, you've told me, and it's like, now like one of my closest friends, he's Eminem to him. Like, he doesn't even know M. It's like a fucking celebrity. So it's like, you just never fucking know.
Yeah, and even, like, you never know who's going to be somebody. Even for people who don't necessarily turn out to be, like, anybody in that term of speaking, who just might be, like, the dopest person who's going to be there for you when some shit goes wrong or some shit. Like, it's not always, like, the big player who's there. It's the random person who just didn't have anywhere to go after the show, and they didn't even know who you are, and they just like hung out, and they're like, oh, but do you need a ride? Like, I'll help you. And then they give you a ride, and then you bond with that person. They come out and check the show every time, and they're like, oh, do you like his music? Well, I've never even listened to it, but he's my homie, I'll come see him every time he comes. Like, you know,
pretty much just goes to show, don't write anybody off, man. Anybody around you could have the potential to fucking change your life, or to be a big fucking
absolutely
helper and influence in some way.
Yeah, as long as they're not a detriment, everybody's like a good resource. Like you said, like I've had people in my life that I'm just like, I don't even know how the fuck they're in my life, and then just like the most random shit happens, like my dog dies or some shit, and they're just like, they say the shit that I need to hear, or they send me something or whatever.
Or
Like, oh, fuck.
it's like the guy in the group that you're like, I don't know about that guy, and then like some shit goes down and everybody else kind of doesn't pay attention. He's the one like, but are you okay though? Like,
That's a. I've now in the last 5 to 6 years, I tend to protect the people in my life that I keep a eye out for that skill set, because there are some people who be in rooms and they're thinking about how the room's perceiving them. They're not really present. They're not looking. They're kind of like more trapped in like, do I look okay? Is my looks fine?
Yeah.
You know, how do I look? Am I dry? Blah, blah. They're not really taking in the fucking room. And then there's that person that's just like taking in this shit, and they spot like the sadness of somebody, or they go, hey, you look like something happened. And it's like, you know, fucking blah 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 just happened, you know. And whenever I see somebody like that now, I look for those people, because I'm like, I know how much of a that's a skill set that I like to have around me in life, you know, because I don't have that. I can't spot the person across the room and go, hey, you look sad. They're like, get the fuck out of my face. I was not sad. I was rhyming in my mind, you dummy. Like, I don't know. I don't have a good read on that. I don't have a lot of some of the skills I do have work, but some of the skills that I marvel at, I don't have them. Like that type of shit.
So you're saying you don't have empathy?
Well, not that I don't have empathy. It's the read on it.
I know.
Yeah, you know, it's the read. There are some people who notice shit that you won't. Like, you'll be around 6 people.
Well, it's noticing social cues, right? Just being able to read a person's face or their fucking the way they're carrying themselves, all that sort of shit, right? Like, but some people can sense it. Some people fucking can just read it pick up the cues that you're putting on.
For sure, but there's common social cues, and then there's some people who penetrate a whole nother fucking layer.
Those are
you're just
the
like,
ones who can penetrate, like those are the true empaths that can fucking they can see it, they can read it, but they can also fucking just feel the fucking.
And sometimes it's like a sensory thing where it's like, yeah, they're picking up and reading the environment, but sometimes it's just like the way that it's empathic is because you've done something so niche that you recognize something that nobody else would, but because you've done whatever that is, you're like, I see you, and now I can peel 4 layers of your onion just because I seen that little fucking...
they recognize the pattern that went off kilter, so they're like, I noticed this little thing because I've seen that before, I've done it before. So they recognize it, and that's sometimes life giving you data. Like, it's not that you care more; it's just life gave you this ability. Like, I recognize for whatever fucking reason. Like, I tend to, God puts addicts around me. Like, no matter where I go, and like one of my close friends, and I live in California now. I say this proudly. I don't think it's a bad thing. He's a functional alcoholic. You know, he's like one of my men. He's a functional alcoholic. He doesn't. It's not sloppy. He doesn't drive. He Ubers everywhere. Yeah.
He's not making his addiction other people's problem.
Nah, man. He gets everything done. You won't even notice it unless you're around him. But he will drink like a shot of hard liquor at 1 in the afternoon.
That sounds like my dad.
Yeah, and it's very functional. But like, I didn't know that because he was like, you just don't know unless you're like around him like that. But like once like we got really, like, we were really cool. But once I seen behind the curtain, I was like, oh, of course you're fucking. But you know, of course I'm mad close with a functional alcoholic. This just makes the most sense. Like, I've been surrounded by addicts my whole fucking life, so it's like I don't think I spotted this person, but I think it's just like I could connect with person, and I kind of like somebody else might have been like, there's something off about him, and for me there was just nothing off about him. I just thought he was just a hella chill dude, and. But I could probably say he's a functional alcoholic. He just like drinks all fucking day, but no one knows. And some people have that kind of Bert Kreischer in them.
Yeah, for sure. The Mickey Mantle gene.
The Mickey Mantle gene, you know what I mean? He has that Mickey Mantle gene. But yeah, like I think, you know, it's fascinating with you, Reg, because like you are the type of person that does that with other artists. You'll be like, this artist, you know, and then you'll hear something about them, and then you'll cut through that, and you'll peel 4 layers of what makes them special beyond the shit that they're special about. You know what I mean? And I'll ask you questions like, what makes you think of this person, and what makes you think of this? And then there'll be people popping, and I'll be like, what do you think about that? And you'll kind of see the reasons they're popping. You'll do business with them, but you'll be like, it's probably gonna last a year, and then this and that. And make no mistake, I've seen it play out. Like you've said, you've called out the numbers people will drop down, because you could kind of see what was sustainable, what isn't. Not even just in the numbers game, just in the what they're doing to maintain that. Yeah. And you're just like, you just can't keep doing that. The world's changing. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna have to do other stuff, and they don't have a real connection with a specific audience. And I'm not gonna say the names. After this, we'll say it. But I remember thinking that's a hard drop off he's predicting, but you called it and it's happened. And I'm like, wow, like Reds kind of see some of these shits for what they are because you know the reasoning, the cause and the reasoning, and then you see the level of sustainability. And if you see one little thing in the pattern, you're good at noticing those numbers are gonna drop. Like get it now before it's all gone. Like. You know
I
what
think I just see reflections of myself that I know of. I'm like, oh man, that's not gonna work out for you.
He's lived it, so he's
You're projecting.
It's just in a science or mathematical way. Like
You're a fucking your equation is just like you're just projecting. It's like I see the failure in you. Here's the equation of artificial fucking failure, and you're one letter off. I got you.
But I mean, that's a lot of like why I've tried to bring artists from around the world here too. Is, you know, I can't even remember where I heard it once, but it was like if you want to like develop things in similar ways that like people you have looked up to have, rather than studying them, study what they studied, and so that you know, and then bringing people like Bender is a great example. Is like meeting him, he couldn't like from what the KOTD persona was to the person that I met couldn't have been like flabbergastingly different. And when that was like a world that I was like the battle world I was trying to compete in more, I thought that I had to be like this maniacal asshole to like own that spot, and I was letting it bleed into my life and affect my relationships. And then I was like, oh, well, the King's here and he doesn't have a fucking whiff of that, so clearly that's just some bullshit I made up in my head, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it was like everybody I've brought in some way or another ends up in a long story short, there's something they got to tell me I'm fucking stupid about, and I'm just not going to hear it from anybody else other than that person, because I understand why like I can value how their understanding has brought their life where they wanted to go.
Yeah, I had an artist one time, we was traveling with them with Tech, and they said, I don't need my art to support me. I'll support my art, and then I'll just figure it out from there. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, I don't mind working a job. And I know I couldn't do that at the time, but I just thought that is a beautiful concept of just like, you know, I'm going to protect the ability to create rather than hope the ability to create protects me and gives me all these decorative things, you know what I mean? And
I went about it wrong. I did the opposite. Learned in my age, but I didn't.
Yeah, and it takes a while for you to meet somebody and they go, I'm fine. Like, I'm great. I'm doing good. And you surround yourself with people that you're just like, damn. Because, like, I sometimes look at, like, kids chasing Spotify numbers, and they'll have higher numbers than me, but they can't sell 500 shirts.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you're chasing the numbers, but can't sell a shirt to nobody. And I'm just like, I keep those numbers. I like being able to sell a shirt to somebody. You know what I mean? That's just my shit. My thing is just a connection. And you, as you know, I heard my shit on a website, and I was just like, fuck it. Like, I'm good with that. But it takes a different kind of cookie to be like, yeah, I don't mind doing that. And I don't mind doing it this way. And the weird thing about it is I've talked to enough business people that they like want to expand my way. That they're like, let's take what you're doing and just apply it on a much more broad level. And I'm just like, that's fine, let's do it. But it's like, at what cost, and what are you trying to do with it? You know what I mean? There's a whole different ballgame. And I think ownership does matter the more and more we're in this. You know what I mean? Some of my friends now, I'll tell you off this when we end, but he's off a label and he's dropping all his shit off the label. Been pretty successful for about 10, 11 years. And now he's, I'm like, well, so why are you not dropping that with the label anymore? He goes, I want to own my shit. I'm like, wait, what? That's an independent label. They own their shit. He's like, yeah. Actually, he's put it out publicly. It's recognized. It's recognized.
I'm not gonna say, but is a homie from across the pond?
He put it out. He put it out publicly. He's recognized. Now that I'm thinking about it, Rec wrote this on Facebook or some shit.
Oh, it's sorry.
It's recognized.
When you said recognized, I thought you meant he's recognized.
Nah. Bars. It's recognized of Mayday. Mayday is a very successful group. And Rec's whole shit was like, I want ownership. Yeah. And I thought I was protecting his secret. And I remember him posting about this now. But I've had some like one-on-ones with him about it because I've known Rec for a long time, and yeah, he's like, I want to own my shit, and then he's like, what about you? And I'm like, I own everything. It don't got 1 million views like your shit, you know, that you did 8 years ago, but I don't own my shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, fuck, man, like the way the world's going now and NFTs and virtual shit, there is a power in ownership, and I wish I thought about that now. And, you know, Rex, you're good. You get 1 million views.
Yeah.
You've had a couple million view videos, and
Yeah.
you're very
The good thing is you have a platform that they probably helped you build at this point, so it's not too late to start.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. He's just diving into something I lived for like 12 years.
Yeah.
13 years. Just like that's the life I've lived.
Yeah.
And he's now diving into it. And it's a scary life. But for me to think about it, like I'm just like, I can't believe I was all right. You know what I mean? Like this, like with some of the shit other people wouldn't be all right with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Saying no to like deals and mass appeal and I'm good, I'm all right. You know what I mean?
But it goes back into like, you know, some people, the only thing that they're holding on to in life at all is the maniacal drive of the success of like what they're doing, sort of thing. And you, as a more balanced person who's found other avenues in your life of fulfillment beyond just this one typical thing, and different avenues of financial gain and everything in the process, put yourself in a better position. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because to me, like, I just want to, like, to me, all the currency of this shit is, I'm a big book guy, and I just don't think Orwell would, you tell him what's happening with his books, he'd be like, really? And I look at this shit that's lasted a while. There's a lot of people who lived in obscurity. I'm not saying that that's my fucking goal, but I look at it and I'm just like, art is a fucking weird world where, you know, you could be El Greco in your lifetime or Van Gogh, and you're just like not sure. And a lot of authors, and I mean, remember George Carlin did an interview and he was like, yeah, everybody has fucking Elvis, loves Elvis, but it's because we grew up when Elvis was something.
Yeah.
In the future, no one's gonna give a fuck about Elvis.
Yeah.
And in the radio, Opie and Anthony, I think it was, they were like, that's impossible. Though, who wouldn't like Elvis? Elvis was so cool. He's like, he was a fat slob who stole black people's music.
Yeah.
No one's gonna care about Elvis. He died because he had an addiction to food. Fuck him. You know, like whatever he was saying. But he was half trolling, half serious. But like I look around and all these kids got on Pink Floyd shirts. They're not wearing Elvis shirts. Yeah. And it's like, why? There's something there, right? Yeah. So to me, you told Pink Floyd that when they were making, you know what I mean? Like whatever the wall, you know what I mean? They'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. So like for me, like I just look at this as like, it's like you're submitting your shit to the Library of Congress, and it's just gonna come out of a shelf like in the Renaissance, and it's like we don't know 200 years from now. I don't think no one's gonna care about Drake and other these guys, not because that they're not celebrities to them. That's one part of it, but another part of it is nothing is interesting when you're talking about the things that we're interested in. I've never sat in history and go, how many much money that king had. And they're like, that's not the fun part of this, you know.
Unless it was Mansa Musa, it doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. Like, who was his bitch? Like, no one cares. But, like, the stories that are interesting, you're too separated. You're not going to be like, well, he was this famous guy 200 years ago. Everybody liked Rasputin, like, or whatever the fuck it is. Like, he's like the most biggest afterthought now in certain parts of these conversations. So for me, I look at like when I talk to people about who's struggling with their rap shit, and they go, "What's your fucking fix? Like, what's your fix?" I'm like, my fix is like, this shit is like, hopefully it stays on a shelf, and whatever virtual, digital, physical shelf, and hopefully somebody just.
Yeah. That's it off.
Yeah. Oh shit! All right, cool. Like that made sense back then. Like, at 2,500 or whatever.
It's really, you don't want to be remembered. You just want to have some sort of relevance to
and
future generations.
Yeah, and represent something that's true to me. And if it lasts, it lasts. I don't think we're meant to be around to understand our impact. Yeah. You know what I mean? None of these people around now are, because I just follow I read a little bit too much about history to see that the people who are remembered and the people who are sort of elevated. I mean, Edison could never imagine that he's gonna be he must have died going, man, I squashed Tesla. I got that motherfucker out out of here. They don't even know about alternate current. I fucking won. Like, there's no way Edison, with all that money and getting a billionaire to sue this fucking poor Austrian dude or Serbian guy, like Westinghouse or whoever he got. Like, there's no way he could visualize, like, the tech world. And it's like, his name's on a fucking the future cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you're not around. No one even looks at you. Edison. No one's thinking of you. Graham Bell. No one's like, oh, he invented the phone. That's just done. So it's like, I look at how the like history remembers the players. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, yeah, the players aren't the guys who had billions of dollars. Like, that's just not interesting to people.
Yeah.
Nah.
No.
And we. And not just that, the message too. Like, if you look at George Carlin and like Lenny Bruce, like we were watching Miss Maisel the other day, and like Lenny Bruce is there. Lenny Bruce ain't probably funnier than Eddie Murphy. Like, Lenny Bruce probably ain't, or Carlin even, probably not funnier than a Bill Burr or some shit. But the fact that the shit he was talking about was so substantive and so meaningful, it flies above. Pink Floyd, that shit is like an album about fucking psychosis and like escaping isolation. It's like, yeah, that's gonna live, not Elvis.
That's what's timeless. People are always gonna be stuck with that loop, and that's never gonna go away.
Yeah, like, you know, you ain't nothing but a hound dog, ain't these. But that shit, you know, that has much more weight. The Alchemist, you know, like Paulo Coelho, like, you know what I mean, like, no way he could imagine, you know what I mean, like, you know, like that this shit's gonna have weight in circles and make people just in intellectual circles debate something that he's never given the answer on for fucking 19 hours. And it's like the same shit like Inception or whatever. Like, these movies aren't like bigger than Avatar, but they're always going to be looked at in a different. Another thing is Kubrick. Like, you talk to people about Kubrick, they're like, who, what, why? Yeah, he's hit that. But there's also that world where it's like, he's a whole different being than other people.
But the modern creators who make the things that people love worship that person
100%, and it's because of the thought process that goes into it. The like he said, like
kind of like Tool with fucking some Tool fans. Fuck, it's their fucking world and shit like that, right? Everyone else is like, what the fuck's this, right? But most of the artists that fucking those other people are listening to are all influenced by fucking Tool.
You're a wrestling head, right?
Pardon me?
You're a wrestling head, right?
Oh yeah.
Hulk Hogan, when we were growing up, and the Ultimate Warrior was the shit. All these young AEW guys are like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. Like, they don't even talk about the Warrior. They look at him like a stupid, like a weird mocky character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
all of the fucking characters from back then that wore the flashy, outlandish fucking outfits and shit like that.
Yeah.
Once the Attitude, like kids that grew up in the Attitude era of fucking. Wrestling, they look at all the shit that we fucking grew up to as like flash. It's kind of like fucking people enjoy hard rock looking at fucking hair metal.
Right.
It's the same sort of fucking divide.
Like when in the 90s, like all the wrestlers were big, and it was like how big you were, and like Bret Hart was the best wrestler in wrestling. Like, shout out to Canada. So, like, but he was the best wrestler. Like, he never fucked up any move. He never hurt nobody. And he was like, it wasn't even close. It was like, he was the best wrestler, and everyone was just like... It wasn't
just about how good he was either. He was also, or like how good his own skills at wrestling were. It was also about how good he could make other people.
Oh yeah. That's the main.
Perform.
He made
like,
Stone Cold big, like because.
And that's because you could could read the other people's cues. You know exactly what they're doing, what they're gonna be better at or worse at, and you could fucking help facilitate them fucking pulling off their moves better and shit like 100%. You're elevating them, but you're also making yourself look better because things are just more fucking fluid, right?
100%. So he was like a genius on this wrestling. Like, he's a wrestling savant.
Yeah, and that's his upbringing, right? He's like born into it. His fucking father was fucking,
and his mom was even into it.
In Canadian wrestling here.
So the crazy shit is no one could imagine that, like, this guy who was, all the guys had to be bigger and all whatever. Like, if you went back in the early 90s, even though he became a star or whatever, this and that, but then The Rock and Stone Cold, okay. But if you went back to, like, even 99 or 98 and was like, who do you think in 20 years all these kids are going to study? None of them could imagine it would be mainly him. Like, like they're just ripping off his whole shit. You know what I mean? Like, no one could imagine that that's more relevant because the guys can't always be that big.
Yeah.
But they're always gonna have to do the moves.
Yeah.
They're always gonna have to tell stories in a much more traditional sense. You're not always gonna have the airtime.
Yeah.
You're not always gonna have non-censorship in different pockets.
Yeah.
You're not always gonna have millions of dollars to throw at celebrities to come in. But the shit in the ring is always gonna be relevant. And it's like, even Brett, I listened to some podcast interviews with him, and they're like, "Did you think you would be this influential?" He's like, "Oh fuck no, absolutely not," because I was out, and they started following The Rock. They started following everybody else, and the moves were getting better. The wrestlers didn't look better right after when I left. The wrestling looked like shit when I left. Like Hulk Hogan and The Rock is a horrible match. You know what I mean? But the wrestling looked like shit. But 20 years later, they're all like, "Hey, yo, like, I want to do that shit." You know what I mean? I want to do Shawn Michaels kicks and I want to be a hybrid of both of those guys. And everybody's done become that. Now, that I'm not, maybe that's
who's gonna fucking be remembered. Yeah.
right. Maybe that's a selfish goal of mine, but like my goal is just like some kid just goes, "All right, I seen what people do with this. I know you could do that. That's kind of cool. I want to do that." And that kid take his shit to a level where it's just like, holy fuck. I didn't even know I could do some of that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's more of a goal to me than like everybody be like, "Let's suck Nino's dick." I don't want the statue, but I want the guy that got the statue to like, because he sings better, it's more marketable, he looks better, he wants to be a star.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He can handle that life. I want that guy to like take the piece of the art form that I was taught. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what the value. And if he doesn't get it from me, even better, I don't care. But if I'm able to give that to that person, I'm like, fuck yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that changed my whole trajectory. Like, that's why, like, I'm such, like, a big dude for Idea. Was, like, I had no idea the expanse of what hip-hop could even be, or let alone that, like, this, like, little fucking weirdo just, like, came out and conquered rap for a weekend and then, like, grew to hate it and fucking become, like, almost crucified for trying to become the full human that he himself like was capable of, but having all these like fucking little rap dweebs like, "Oh, you fucking you gave up on hip hop, man. What you doing, little fucking guitar?" And dudes like show up to his shows and like fight him over it. Like, holy fuck.
Right. What
you did like was so powerful that like in the absence of you creating it, these people literally like fucking lost their shit. Like,
Idea is a perfect example, and I gotta catch a flight in like 2 hours. But
yeah,
no, we're good. But Idea is such a good example because, from what I gathered, being friends with his friends, like I'm not only cool with Slug and guys like that, and Ali even. I'm fucking cool with Meta Soda, who grew up with him. Who was one of his first battles was with Meta.
yeah.
So like, me and Meta are like really close friends.
That's why I thought you put me on the phone with one day, but that was the other homie.
Yeah, Meta. I think I put you on the phone with Meta about a deal situation. We did talk about.
That was him then. Yeah,
that was him. Yeah. And I said, yo, he battled Idea. He's known Idea.
Yeah.
Idea's first battles was around Meta. So, but one thing I've learned about Idea is that from secondhand is that the people who fuck with Idea don't fuck with nobody.
Yeah.
They're not like Atmosphere. They're like, fuck that shit. That shit, Atmosphere sucks. Cause Idea would ignite that. Like, what did Slug say? You would have hated this song on Flickr. He's like, yeah, you would have said only white girls would like this record or whatever. And like, yeah, you're like fucking making records for chicks. Like, there's no heart, there's no soul in this. But like, Idea fans are just like, even now, he's gathering new fans. Every fucking day, somebody's waking up as an Idea fan and like diving into his catalog and his thought process and how he saw the world. That's fucking crazy. You know what I mean?
I can't think of like, I mean, if you put anybody else up, it'd be Bender. But like for somebody who only got so far in the rap world that people celebrate their anniversary so like cohesively every year still. You know
he's
what
the
I
biggest.
Mean? Like,
He's the least known guy that they do that with.
Yeah.
There's nobody more, but that lets you know the impact. And look, I could fucking. I'm not gonna say nobody because I'm not trying to manifest this, but I could rattle off names that will apply for people who are not as big. That they will never not miss a date. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, there are guys who have touched people, like even Apathy. He's touched people on a level that will never go away. Yeah. 20 years from now and 20 years 20 years ago and 20 years from now, some of those dudes' kids are going to put him on and be like, yo, you still got to fuck with this shit. Because I see it happening to, like, Tech. I see it happening with Slug. Bro, when Atmosphere came to Fresno, there was all these fucking young-ass fans. And he did a show with a young reggae band. Like these white dudes who do alternate rock reggae or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, yo, Slug, those are your... bumping uglies or some shit. Yeah. And I was like, yo, Slug, I didn't know those are your fans. He's like, they're not my fans. They're fucking these reggae dudes fans. I was like, all right, cool. And then when I went by and he walked around, he's like, they bought my shit. They know who I was. They like wanted me to sign my shit. These 19-year-old kids who like wanted him to sign God Loves Ugly that like came out when they were born. You know what I mean? And were like, I can't believe I'm old enough to come to your show. And it was like, he was like, how long have you been fucking with me? And they're like 3 years, 4 years. You know what I mean? And it's like we live in that world now where people could find, like I said, the Gilmore Boys. You could find your niche and just kind of like connect with those people. So for me, like this is all bonus. Like I've already made it. I've already rapped with all these dudes. And I, you know, like for you, like I think we talked about this. I was like, hey, Reds, just get your shit off. Like get your shit off the way you want to get it off. And it happened. Just be proud of your shit and the rest is a bonus. Yeah, and like the view shit used to really fuck me up. But then like something I had to take into consideration is like generally the people you're molding your plan after are like the same people you're gonna have similar trajectory to, and like all of my favorite things are all of the most slept on things on the planet. So like not even to like give myself that credit, but if I was to create like my perfect magnum opus, it still couldn't be more than that, because it's not just that, but it's not just that. That's part of it. The other part of it is you have to algorithmically hack it. Yeah. So it's like that's beyond your control. Like you have to figure out how to catch an artificial brain's attention. Yeah. Like your goal is to wake up and go, how do I get an artificial brain to notice me? And that's why people are punching their moms, you know what I mean? Drowning their kids or whatever the fuck, they're slapping sandwiches out of old ladies' hands because they're like, you'll notice this in this little artificial brain that's hiding me through all this shit. So like that's part of it as well, which is like you can't really put view counts on you because if you it's like this, right? If you put your circumstance in somebody else who has your resources and where you know the type of what are they doing with the people that you're looking at that following their plan? Yeah. How would they operate with your plan? Yeah. Reverse engineer that shit. Don't ask yourself, oh, how could I get to that person? Like go. If that person had my fucking dealt with my cards, would they be where I'm at? I don't know about that. You know what I mean? I read this story about this swimmer that left like the Balkans and like she was somewhere in Lithuania or whatever, and she would have, because she lived around a nuclear waste space or whatever, she would have to fucking commute 2.5 hours to this pool. And she could only swim 2 times a week because the pool was only clean 2 times a week. So she became an Olympian, right? And somehow, some way, won the bronze, right? Technically, that's a loss to some people, right? Yeah. But homegirl won the bronze, and there's a picture. And then there's the American silver medalist, and then there's the gold medalist, which is from Sweden or some shit. And then there's her. The Swedish chick's like, expected this, you know? The silver medalist like, I hate myself. Can't believe I'm a silver medalist. And this fucking bronze chick's like, fuck yeah! Fuck! Because I guarantee you, if the fucking gold and the silver chicks, you know, swimmers had to live her life, they would have never been an Olympian. And that's a reach, but it's also how astronomically, like, the chances of that, like, mathematically, it's impossible. Like, you'd have to be born with a whole nother, like, for you to commute that long and only swim 2 times a week, when you have all these swimming trainers, Sweden and America, and you 5-7 days, and them other bitches came in 4th, 5th, 6th to this 3rd place girl who only got a chance to swim 2 times a week. And in my head, I was like, well, what's harder, that bronze or the gold? Yeah. Or the silver? What was harder? Because bronze, that's a hard thing to get. So to me, as an artist, I don't compare myself to the other people because I'm like, yeah, try coming up, try getting on the way I did. I would love to see you go home like, you know, and then come back, wake up, and give it a
Try
go.
it again.
Lose 30 grand, lose 20 grand. Let me see how you handle losing money multiple times.
That's just a true measure of one's heart right there.
Heart, and also it does require sickness.
Yes,
like
yeah,
you can't be normal, man. To lose 30 grand and go, I keep doing this.
Yeah.
Like it's a fucking sick. Like the people I've seen survive this. You know, Ilmac made a quote to me one time. Ilmac told me, people who don't mind eating shit can survive this game.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, oh, I don't mind being broke. If that's the worst that could happen, I've been there.
It's the only way I've survived my life.
Yeah.
Far
If I
as
have to
don't
go
mind
look for
being
coins
broke.
underneath my couch, like I've been there before. Like if you're okay with eating shit, you could survive this shit. But like some people in this game, they lose 20 grand. They're like, what the fuck?
End
was
of the
I
fucking world.
I'm out of here. I'm gone. Losing this much money? Fuck rap. And then you see them 2 years later at an EDM concert, and they're like, I got out the rap game. I'm a DJ now. I play
Some people
fucking.
just can't handle fucking trauma.
I work with
They're just
Bass
like,
Nectar. I don't rap
People are-
anymore. I'm doing some other shit. You're like, all right, Holmes. Like I guess like that you know that other side of the grass seemed a little bit greener for you, but like. This shit is for like the brown grass lovers. You can't like there's no green grass here because you know no matter where you at, you know what I mean. You gotta you're gonna have to eat shit one way or another. You know what I mean?
That sounds like the perfect sentiment to end this shit on. You're gonna have to end eat shit one way or another. And I know you gotta go to a plane, and we'll chat forever if we don't cut it off. So, my man, thanks for doing this.
All right, so everybody, we got J Reds here. Nino Bless. This motherfucker's heading out on a flight. I've been MC Ironfoot. Thank you all for fucking tuning in here. And let's hope this motherfucker makes it back out this way again sometime. We'll do this again.
Fuck yeah!
That was the wrong one. That's the
Oh, fuck yeah!
That's a wrap.